right, there we are. Welcome everybody. Today is December 21st, 2023. It is a special meeting because we moved the time, and I appreciate everybody working with our calendar on moving the time up. It is much appreciated. So I'd like everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's a big meeting, end of the year. It's been a great year, Court, and appreciate serving with you all. Before we get going, I would like to invite Leslie up for our blessing. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, no problem. I am, excuse me, I'm from Interfaith Council. I think I'm the last of the Interfaith Council speakers you all have or on the agenda. I think I'm the end of the year, into the...
Save the best for last, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm going with.
That's right.
All right. I did one in the Christmas spirit this year. Spirit of life, during this season, may we bear witness to the guiding lights, the lights in the sky that call us to gather and to give of ourselves, to celebrate new life. May we receive and offer good tidings, news that life and its blessings go on, that tyrannical rulers do not have the final word, and that despair is not everlasting. May our senses be awakened to delight in the gifts of fragrance and warmth, to savor the feasts before us, and to revel in the feelings of laughter and embrace. May we breathe deeply as we sit in the stillness of the short days. May our hearts beat a rhythm of gladness, and may we lift our voices to proclaim the joy of this season. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. All right, now I'm going to ask, is there anyone here for public comments that would like to speak? Seeing no public comments, I'm going to invite Duke Wilburn, our road superintendent, up to kind of give us an update on how the road department's doing. How you doing, Duke?
Doing fine. How y'all doing?
Good.
I just want to give you a little update on our project at the road department, our new building. Rising Sun's got all the walls up for the vehicle storage building. It's a slow process, but it's a lot of work. So they just poured the grade beam there yesterday that you're looking at now. And so their intention is to start working on preparation for the slab for that building next couple of weeks.
Will the slab go in before the steel goes up?
Yes.
It will. Okay.
Yep.
How's everyday work going with the road department? Y'all ready for snow? All the trucks?
Well,
and
yeah,
everything?
we've got all of our equipment ready for the snow or any kind of event. But wrapping up our leaves for the year. Today's the last day on it. We'll probably do a little cleanup next week. Just make a quick sweep through the county, and then working on a little washout issue down on Harvey Land. Got to pour a little wall in there. They're working on it today, so going pretty good.
Will you all continue to do any of your mowing, like of the blind spots and things like that throughout the winter?
We're doing mow trim work right now. We're
okay.
Having a little trouble with that machine. It's old and about wore out, but when it is running, we're working it. So
okay.
I think it's currently it's out on Old Lawrenceburg Road right now.
Okay. Good. Squire Tanner?
When is the anticipated date? When being delivered or available?
Be late spring, early summer.
24 before summer.
Yes, hopefully.
Yes.
Right. And our update on our truck, I called Monday on it. He told me we'd have it before Christmas, but it looks like might be first week of the new year. So.
Well, the good news is the extended forecast looks pretty
Right.
good, but I don't want to say that too loud.
Little rain.
Yeah. Squire Tracy?
Just want to thank you and staff that participated in the parade with us for decorating the truck up. It was nice.
Yeah. It looked nice.
Yeah, it did. Any other questions for our road superintendent? Duke, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, and let's keep moving.
You got to be careful about making those trucks look nice. People expect that all the time.
Alrighty, next we're gonna look at, you all have in your calendar or work, what we're looking for a meeting schedule for next year. Hopefully you all have had a chance to look that over. I'm gonna ask if there's dates that don't work or whatever with this proposed schedule for next year. If you could just maybe make a note here or see Mitzi, and then we could just, we can take a shot at it again. We took everyone's info from the emails that we sent out a couple months ago as far as your input, and we tried to base the schedule around that. School schedules, holidays, training things and stuff like that. So if there's a date or two that don't work for any of you all, let's go ahead, if you don't mind, before you leave today, let's get with Mitzi, and then we can get this finalized the best we can.
So just tell her.
Yeah, I think that'd just be easier if that's okay. Y'all good with that? Alrighty. Next, I believe our sheriff is with us to talk about his budget. Good afternoon, Sheriff. Man, you all look nice today.
It's a big day for us.
What about that? You look nice. You didn't bring gifts for the court and stuff? Oh, it's a big day for you.
I brought a big check. We'll deliver that here in a minute. I'm gonna do the first couple slides, and then Chief's gonna do it till we get down to the money part at the end, so
And then who does that?
I'll do my best. The first slide's the most important for, all right. Go to the next slide, please. Here we go.
Wow, look at that graphics.
It says we're not asking the fiscal court for any additional funds. Yes, our budget's going up, but it'll be based on our revenue source, so that's good news. Chief, you ready?
That was it? I mean, really? That was it?
He's a man of few
What about-
words, so
That's why you're so good at your job. I love that.
let me start off by saying thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come and speak with you and share some of the things we've done. We started this and we kind of entitled this our report card because we wanted to give you guys just an opportunity just to know what we did over this past year and some of the highlights that the Sheriff's Office, some of the things that we've done. So put together a list of community events, and I'll run through these pretty quickly. We did a fishing derby that was a huge success. I think some of the magistrates come out to that, so we appreciate that. We did back-to-school bashes. We participated at the expo. We did Charlie's Challenge, the Easter egg hunt at Lakeview. We did that. You see us at the fair every year. A lot of people don't know about the weekly meals, but we've had a nice donor that every Friday we actually deliver to 2 or 3 families $100 worth of groceries. So you may see one of our deputies shopping at Kroger and just know that they're actually shopping at Kroger's to buy some groceries to take to a needy family. So we do that every year, or actually every Friday. We delivered 25 Thanksgiving meals. We're going to be delivering meals again this coming Saturday for Christmas. We did a blanket drive during the winter. We did a water drive during the summer. On those hot days, our deputies got out with bottled water and met some of our homeless people that might live here or around, or if they saw people working on crews or different sites, they stopped and gave those folks water. We do a movie night a couple times a year. We participated in the International Fall Festival that we do. We rang the bell to Salvation Army. We do Cram the Cruiser. Next slide, Andrew. Meals on Wheels, we participated. We gave away some money, and we participated in No Shave November. We just recently, we did our Shop with a Cop. We participate with the Wanda George Foundation. We do stuffed animal giveaways and the Simon House. So those are just some of the community events that we participated in. A few slides here, a few pictures just to kind of show you. We really like doing things in the community. The sheriff has put an emphasis on not only just being those patrol deputies or getting out and doing the law enforcement piece, but how can we help, how can we interact with the community and leave that positive impact on folks. All right, next slide. Helping the Eastern Kentucky floods. We actually sent some of our troopers down to the Eastern Kentucky floods. Myself and the sheriff and one of our captains went, stayed down there the whole day, helped out, pitched in. And we do things like this in other parts of the state, because we really want and we hope that if we ever have a bad incident here in Franklin County, that our brothers and sisters in law enforcement will come and help us out as well. So anytime, every now and then, we'll get a message from the Sheriff's Association that says certain county needs certain things, whether it be manpower or equipment or whatever, and we try to share, so with hopes that people will do the same for us down the road. Next slide. Partnerships that we have. Right now, just so you know, we have a full-time traffic grant, which is a pilot program. It's the only in the state, but they actually fund one full-time deputy, and they pay all his salaries, all his benefits, and it's the only one in the whole state. So we've had that for the last 2 or 3 years, and it's worked out really good for us. We're on a DEA task force. We have a deputy that's assigned to that. We have 13 school resource officers, and I thank you all for what you've done to help make that happen. But all 13 of our county schools are covered. We have 2 deputies on the TRU program with the Frankfort Fire Department, or excuse me, the Frankfort Police Department. First time that's ever been done. Our sheriff is on the Sheriff's Association Board. I'm on the election board, and we have a member on the Kentucky 911 board that represents, or from the Kentucky Sheriff's Association. Next slide. Just a real quick slide. Those are a couple guys that's been on the TRU program. Our TRU is, those folks are like a SWAT team. So we have integrated that SWAT program. The city has allowed us to do that. So now when we have a bad situation out in the county, we've got a couple of our guys on the team that will be responding to that. It really helps a whole lot, because calling KSP, them gathering the troops up and trying to get them to Franklin County sometimes takes a long time. But here we have it right here in our backyard, and our guys are a part of that. Next slide. Everybody always wants to know what's happening in narcotics investigation, so we just put together only a couple slides, but totally, or the total amount of money that our deputies were able to take off the street was just a little under $500,000, which is a whole lot of narcotics, which is a whole lot of drugs. There's no big secret what drugs is doing to every community across the state, and our deputies are doing a really good job of fighting that and trying to make it better. This was a traffic stop that was just kind of right outside of our building, where a gentleman had $22,000 in cash in there and some drugs in his car, but that was literally at the light right outside our building. We were able to make that stop, and our deputy did a really good job. Next slide. Narcotics investigation, you can see that's a whole lot of fentanyl, that's a whole lot of cocaine. You can see the canine there. Our guys, we have a gentleman that's on the DEA task force, and what we feel is a better use of our time is when we make a bust like this versus making the bust of somebody that may have $10 or $15 or $20 worth of drugs or something along those lines. So we spend a lot of time with this and a lot of our resources, and when we do get these things, it does make a huge impact not only on our county, but also the other counties across the state. As you can see, that's our jail there. We have a canine unit that we go out to the jail from time to time, and we do searches when the jail allows us to do that, or when the jail is in need of us to do that. We're always willing to go out and do that, but that's been pretty successful, and we're hoping that there's nothing inside the jail, but I think we all know that there are things that slip in from time to time, and we do our best to make sure that we are doing what we can to keep the drugs out of the jails. Next. Investigations. I'll tell you this in just a real brief story about this gentleman. This was a gentleman that we actually made on a traffic stop. It was public knowledge. The case has been adjudicated in court. Anybody can look this up, so I'm not giving out any information at all. But this gentleman was driving down the road, and in the process of driving down the road was actually sexually assaulting a young child as he was driving down the road. Our deputies made a traffic stop, got the child in a safe place. We partnered with not only the feds, but our state attorneys, along with social services and some other folks who work in the court system. And thank God we actually put this guy away for 30 years. So these are the kind of cases that our deputies are working. Things have kind of changed over the last few years, and what we're seeing is, if you look at our cases that our detectives are working, most of the cases that they're working are child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, child mental abuse, or some type of neglect. So we're doing a lot of these cases, and I think we're making a positive impact. At least we're changing the life of some child, or at least we're hoping we are. Next slide. Our fleet. Our fleet's in the best shape it's been in a long time. I'd actually say in the history. I think you guys may see some of our cars from time to time, and I thank you and the court for what you've done to make sure that our folks are in safe cars. Buying and selling of the fleet is working really well for us. We want to try to keep cycling them out as often as we can, because if we cycle them out while they're still on a warranty, then every car that we get is still on a warranty. We don't have to spend a whole lot of money. Last year, we drove over 800,000 miles and only one single collision claim, and that was involving a deer. So we drove that many miles, and the only wreck that we had where there was a claim was a deer ran out in front of us. And so that's at least I think that's pretty good. It's good on, what it costs from insurance premiums and insurance claims, and plus it's keeping our guys and ladies safe and the public safe. Big accomplishment. Recruiting, retention, and professionalism. Sheriff Quires has worked diligently to build a professional office. I mean, he's been doing that for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think you all, hopefully you've seen that in the community, you've seen that. We've been doing a lot of training. We've made training a priority. There's certain things that we can do in-house, but one of the things that we know that as law enforcement continues to change, then we need to be changing with the times. That means more training, different types of training, different things that we need to do to make sure that we're taking care of the public out there. Sheriff Quires also used his fiscal responsibility in an attempt to allocate funds to increase pay increases or pay raises. I think you all may have seen that over the last 6 months or so, or back in the summer, where the sheriff was able to give the men and women of the sheriff's office a raise, and I thank you all for your support for that. But even with that, and this doesn't mean anything other than this is the way it is, that even with that, we're still one of the lowest paid law enforcement agencies for our size. And I thank you, the court, for what you've tried to do to mitigate that and make things better for our team. Next slide. All right, here's one thing that we're really proud about, the recruiting and retention. We've always looked at the funds that we have and how we're going to use our funds and equipment, and the sheriff has done a really good job. We got body cameras now, we got dash cameras now, we got tasers, pepper ball guns, ballistic vest, computers, and our fleet is without a doubt the best that it's been. All those things really help us. All those less lethal things really helps us, so we don't have to go directly to a weapon that's going to hurt somebody or kill somebody. So we're using those things, and our men and women are using them appropriately. Our staff, when you look at our staff, we have 52 total employees. A lot of people may not know this, but 11 of our employees are females. We have 8 African American males, 2 Hispanic males, so 40% of our workforce comes from a minority group. And that's pretty good, and the sheriff wants it to be that way. We don't have minorities just to have minorities. We've got good, hardworking, talented people that are serving Franklin County, and it makes a difference about the people we come in contact with, how we deal with them. The interesting thing about that is that it's really interesting to know the conversations that we're having around our office now versus we were having around our office at 2 or 3 years ago. Because everybody's kind of pitching in, we're learning from each other with different races, different sexes, different sexual preferences or whatever the case may be, but we're really learning a lot from each other, and it's helping us be more effective when we go out and try to do our jobs as law enforcement officers. Next slide. When we talk about audits, the audit and promises delivered, when Sheriff Quire took office, he promised improved audit performances and fiscal responsibilities. I think without a doubt he's done that since taking office. He's had 9 clean audits, 5 have been fee audits, and 4 have been tax audits. The only exception was a comment in 2019, and it was about a movie night that we had. This is pretty big for us because we had taken some money and spent it on a movie night. There was a comment on our audit, went and got an Attorney General's opinion, and the Attorney General came back and said it's okay to use the funds that way. Now, sheriff's officers across the whole state are having movie nights and spending money on things like that simply because of what we were able to do here and getting that Attorney General's opinion. So that was cleared up, and we appreciate any support that we may have gotten from the court on that and Sheriff Quire's efforts in making that happen. Next slide. By completing the promise of having clean audit, Sheriff Squire has not only proven fiscal responsibility, he's saving taxpayer money. Having clean audits for 2 cycles allows the sheriffs to go through a much more streamlined audit. And I think you guys know about the audit process that we go through now, but it's really helping our office. Everybody knows when audits, they can be time-consuming, it bogs you down, but because we've been fiscal responsible, then our audits are not near as cumbersome as what they have been in the past. Next slide. More about fiscal responsibility, and we talk a lot about this because I know it's very important to the court, and it should be important to the citizens of Franklin County as well. But in addition to clean audit, Sheriff Squire has made sure to control other aspects of the sheriff's financial responsibilities, the state advancement that you guys know about, we participate in that. He'll be paying a payroll for the fiscal court this month. I think currently it's going to be, we owe from May to December about $1.5 million, and hopefully you'll be getting that payment here pretty soon. And we'll also be making the payment on the state advancement of about $400,000 here pretty soon. He's made a point to pay our obligations as we go instead of allowing invoices and bills to mount up, placing undue stress on the office, and I think you guys may have seen that in other offices when things are not run the way that they need to be run. Next slide. I think I'm going to do this one, and then Sheriff, then I'll turn it back over to you. So with our fee services revenue, just to give you an idea about what we've done this year, we've done 2,745 vehicle inspections. That's when people actually come to our office and we do the inspection, or we go out to either car dealerships or people's houses to do those. Process serves as far as summons. We served about 2,157 papers this year just on summons. And we had about 601 different people to walk in that wanted a CCCW, and we processed those through the sheriff's office. Next slide. All right, I'll turn it over to the sheriff, and I will just say to you, from my perspective and the role that I sit in, we truly appreciate your support, and we know that you support the law enforcement here in Franklin County, and it does make our job a whole lot easier knowing that, recognizing that you can't give us everything we want, but we really thank you all for giving us all the things that we need to keep the community safe and to keep our deputies safe. So I'll be quiet and I'll let the sheriff take over from here.
Thank you, Chief.
Judge, can I,
Please.
I just want to thank these guys so much because I probably talk to them more than anybody. They get calls from me all the time or texts, and they never, ever fail to take care of the kids that I'm calling about. I just cannot thank them enough. And we just started the situation table. We just had our first meeting, and they are involved in that as well. I don't know how they have time to do all the stuff that they do, but they do an incredible job. So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Squire.
I do have the check. I actually gave Amy the real payroll check.
Amy has to come up, and you have to present it to Amy. Come on. Who's taking the picture? Somebody's taking the picture.
I feel sure she probably already put the other one in. How we doing?
Here, come up here. I'll take the picture. Come here. Come here. Come on this side of it. Yeah, there you go. All right, hand it to Amy. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. There you go. All right.
All jokes aside, that is a big deal. If you've ever paid a house or a car or whatever off, it's like we get down to the end and pay back the $400,000 to the state that we borrow, and then that it's like you feel good. So truthfully, it's a lift. So, all right.
That's it.
There's 2 more slides.
I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Well, one of them you probably answered, the $400,000 advancement, you don't have to pay that back until the end of this fiscal year?
Right.
or-
What they want you to do, we'll get $60,000 in January, but for our first draw, all the way through, I think it's on that sheet, I think it ends in September. And what happens if you don't pay them back in December, you can't have your check in January. So what you do is, we get the bond, we fill out all the paperwork, and then we will reimburse them. And then, so January 1st, we could go down and get our check if we need it. Because as you know, our budget, everybody thinks you get your $4 million budget, but our bank account will have $0 in it. So we're really not funded till we start getting commissions and fees. So that $60,000 lets us pay our gas bill, phone bill, just the basic things you gotta have.
Right.
early in the year.
Yeah, well, it's a good program, and I'm sure a good thing you're taking advantage of it. I mean, that's good business.
It's a
really.
good deal. It's interest-free. We just have to make sure we can pay it back at the end.
I got two other questions, really, just for my information. The deputy that's assigned to DEA, is he in this county, or is he working out of Lexington, or where?
He works all over the place. We actually target cases here when we can, but a lot of the things they do, for example, that big traffic stop with the fentanyl and stuff was coming towards Frankfurt, but they actually made the stop in Georgetown. You know, when your intel hits, you have to move quick. You don't give them a chance to get away, but what that does is allow us to bring federal resources. Like if we call him, he has the tools that we don't have a lot of times, or the resources, so it's really a big benefit.
How many counties are involved in this DEA region here? Is it just from here to Louisville?
Almost
where
every
is it?
county's involved. I can't say for sure, but it's hard to get a spot. And what happened was he retired from Frankfurt, and that's what he did for a long time. So in 2019, when I got elected, we worked out a deal, and they ended up saying, we got a spot if you want somebody, and he was the perfect hire because he'd already been up there.
One more, or two.
Okay.
Seized property, how long you got to keep that before it becomes your property, or you can sell it, or whatever you get? Money would be just,
Sometimes a long time, but what happens, once the case is done in court, you have to get a court order signed, and then it tells you what to do with the money. Sometimes the person will get it, or their attorney, and then the Commonwealth or county attorney gets their fee, and then we'll get the rest to spend towards allowable expenses, to go on our asset forfeiture.
so if it's not money, and if it's an automobile, do you get to auction it off at that time?
You can, or use it for department or
Use it.
office use, but cars are hard to get because most people are either leasing, they're in somebody else's name. People have gotten smart. It's not, we used to get a lot of vehicles, but it's not that way anymore.
Well, I had one more, but I think he answered it. He said it were the body cams, you mentioned that they were properly used. I don't know what that exactly means.
Well,
That means they on all the time or not on?
they're
all
on
the time?
anytime you have contact with the citizen that could be negative, traffic stop, any kind of call, serving a paper. Now, if you're eating dinner, no, but if somebody walks up and you can tell it's going to be an issue, you flip it on, We've had to change that a lot because when you first get them, it's hard to get people to adapt to it. It's new, it's just everybody don't know what to expect. So we've had to work it in, but it's working now. It's the best it's been. Of course, the policy's changed a few times. We've upgraded our cameras at least once. Probably going to do it again this year. It's just
Everybody-
like cell phone technology. You get the new one next year, it's like there's bigger, better ones.
Yeah. Does all the deputies have those, all the road deputies, or just?
Yes, school, road, the courthouse has one they can use if they need it, but not every bailiff's going to have one in each courtroom. But there's certain times they have them.
No more questions for me?
Sheriff said you had-
Can I add something to that? And just so you know, there are times where the cameras may be down. Our men and women work 12-hour shifts, and sometimes that battery may not last that long. So depending on what we got going on, but we got things in place hopefully to mitigate a lot of that. But they should be wearing their cameras all the time when they're working, with the exception if they're doing any kind of personal stuff.
Said you had two more slides?
Yes, I think that's right in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we
Okay, so this basically talks about our garage and how it's helped us with our fleet. We have a part-time mechanic that comes up at night, weekends, pretty much anytime we need something, he'll come up, and he schedules like the basic maintenance on his days off from his other job, so it worked out really good. We're trying to get the water still, but Robert and I work, and Dookie's gonna help this time, so we actually signed for the sewer tap and the water, so it's on the way, it's gonna happen, which is great news, because it's been a long time coming. So I appreciate the help on that. Our annual order, you see the amount we're raising it, or asking the court to raise it, $141,456, which that includes a 1.5% across the board. And it also, we're trying to get the school resource deputies to the same salary as our road deputies. They actually got a $3.50 raise, and we couldn't do it on the school side because we got to amend the contract. So what we need to do, or what I like to do, is get the spending authority from the court and then go see the school and negotiate the contract where it'll go up. But again, we're not asking the court. This will be money from our commissions, fees, contracts, and we'll figure it out.
Good deal. So who has questions for the sheriff? Well, I just want to say on behalf of the court, like Squire Dyke has said, we appreciate everything you all do. You're definitely a pivotal part of this community, and you're not afraid to get in there and do the work, and anytime we've asked for anything, you help us, and we appreciate the working relationship we have with the Sheriff's Department. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you and Deputy Depp being here. Is there a way, the slide presentation, can you send that to all of us?
Sure, absolutely.
Because there's some details in there
Yes.
that we can
Happy to do
utilize
it.
across here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, that's our operating budget and annual order. I think there's one more slide in there, Andrew. Maybe not. Okay, maybe it's it. Gotcha.
Okay.
Well, all right.
Well, don't go too far, because I'm just going to do the judge's report, and then we're going to look at minutes, and then you're going to be right back up.
Okay.
We'll hit that, your items here in 2 seconds. All righty, so now we're going to head, judge's report. End of the year, things have been busy. We have a lot going on. December 12th, I think everybody knows that we had the inauguration for our governor and lieutenant governor. Wonderful couple days of events. I never realized, since we are the capital city, how much involvement we have in the inauguration. So I was proud to be part of that along with my wife. So pictures of the parade. I mean, it started the evening before with a ceremony at the old state capitol, and then the private swearing in the rotunda, and then there's a whole day of, us taking the traditional cake and biscuits and ham, and then the history center, and one thing after another, church service, where else we go, parade, and then the inauguration itself, and then the ball that evening. So I couldn't say enough good things about the event. I thought the state and everybody else involved did a phenomenal job. It's going to be hard to beat that inauguration, but we appreciate everything they do for Franklin County. On December 13th, I went to Kentucky State University, and the Leadership Central Kentucky was in town. And so I was able to speak to the class. There was about 35 from 9 counties all around us. So I spoke some, but it was a lot of Q&A because I've been in that class. So it was really neat to interact with another leadership class. We talked a little bit about the Christmas parade. I do want to say thank you to this court. Everybody was there, and it's a proud thing when we invite people and everybody shows up to participate. That was a great evening. Also, the road department was there, like Squire Tracy said, the sheriff's department and fire department. So we want to say thank you to everybody that was involved in the Christmas parade. It just shows that we support our community and employees, and I appreciate everybody being there. It was very nice. Speaking of the holidays, yesterday, Jack, Mitzi, myself, and my wife did a little shopping. So one of the new things I realized is as I marry people, they pay us money, and the money, for some reason, is mine. And so we continued the tradition and kept that money just in a little safe, and I think we had over $500. So we got a list from Wanda Joyce Robinson Foundation, and we went and bought gifts for a bunch of kids. So it was a really cool thing. So we had a great time doing that, and hopefully those kids will be proud. Probably one of the coolest things we bought was we bought about 4 pairs of tennis shoes. They all wanted Nikes or Converse, and that was pretty cool. Just imagining a kid opening that on Christmas morning. So that was a neat thing to do. We had a meeting of the whole on the 14th where we discussed the TIF that will be on the agenda today. We also talked about affordable housing, heading in that direction, and then the ball fields at Lakeview Park that's on this agenda today also. And then also on the 18th, the Finance Committee met, and we talked a bunch of the jail things, financial solution software for 24, which is on this meeting also. So it's been productive. I think the committees have been well. I think they work well, and we're scheduling some for the beginning of the year already. Tammy West somehow got out of this, but she wanted me to kind of update you all on some recent grants that we have received. So I appreciate all her work personally for what she's doing. Kentucky Department of Agriculture awarded $1,212 to the Franklin County Humane Society. The Federal Highway Administration awarded $200,000 to improve roadway safety. If you all remember, we voted on that a couple months ago. So we did get that grant, and so we'll be able to look at problem areas like Versailles Road and Duncan Road and all those things. So that's a great first step, heading and getting those things fixed. CAECO also awarded $5,240 to the regional jail for 2 safety restraint chairs. And again, I just want to thank Tammy for all her work. She works with the Bluegrass Ad a lot also, but I go to her almost daily with different ideas of what we could do, and I know some of you all give her information too, which is great, so it's a team effort. Yesterday I went and spoke to the Rotary. Had a great time, kind of talked about 23, what we did in 23, and what we're looking to do in 24. I left a lot of it open just for Q&A. There was about 30 people there, and I think it went very well. So everybody's very appreciative of what this court's doing, and they realize that we're being fiscally responsible. And then today we had a Christmas staff luncheon. We did a little gift exchange and things like that. So I just want to say we truly appreciate all the employees here at Franklin County, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we hope everyone's going to have a Merry Christmas and be safe out there this year. And now, not last, so you all in your packets received a support letter for the plant board. I think we all know what's going on with the plant board and things like that. So what we did was, the only thing's changed on this letter from what you all have in your packet is that I had Jack add signatures lines. So if everybody's willing, what I'd like to do is go ahead and pass this around right now, and we can all sign this and get it sent to the plant board. So, but all the verbiage and everything is the same. Jack, can you pass that over for me? Pass that around, and we'll get all that signed. So that's what we have for the judge's report. Next, we are going to go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes from our December 6, 2023. Does anybody have any thoughts, concerns, comment on that agenda item? Oh, go ahead, Squire, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Judge. There was one item on the back page, page 3. It is the third paragraph down. It says authorization to receive appointment of David Lodmell. So is that an authorization to receive was it truly an authorization?
I don't think authorization is right.
I'm just trying to
I think just
understand.
receive probably, because I know is that right?
Because we just received it. The
Yeah,
court
it's just received,
it.
yeah.
So,
Claire, can you make that change?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, that's a good call.
thank you.
Squire Wisman.
Couple things, Judge, on that same back page, the second and the third to last paragraph, we kind of went back and corrected that language that needs to be expressed the same way. The motion by Squire Blackburn and seconded by myself to acquire professional services, but the next paragraph doesn't stipulate the same language. It was repeated exactly in that next paragraph with the amount not to exceed $30,000 for a 6-month period. It just wasn't put in the
In that next paragraph?
next paragraph.
Okay.
Okay, I'll fix it.
And then a question for clarification. The second page in, bottom of the page, our county attorney made a suggestion of a motion, and then I so moved the same motion, but it doesn't explicitly state that I made the motion expressing the words of the county attorney. Should we better express that, that I just replicating that language in that next paragraph at the top of the third page, that I made the motion X, which repeated what the county attorney said.
Okay.
I think that would make it cleaner,
Okay.
and that was all.
All right, thank you, Squire. All right, let's see. Others, we're going to ask the sheriff to come back up. Or chief, or whoever.
Judge, we forgot that Captain Abrams had a little presentation, if you don't care, about the schools. He
Yep.
wanted to update you all on the stats and stuff, but.
I was gonna ask why he was here.
It won't
you
take
know?
near as long.
Yeah, I was kinda curious why he was sitting back there. I didn't want it to be awkward. I was like, okay, yeah. You want to go ahead and do that now?
Andrew has like a few slides.
Absolutely. He's a great guy. All right, sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's no problem at all. I've learned to stay in my lane. I'll sit
Yeah.
there and listen.
He's gotta get out, he's got politics.
I do, actually, yeah. So, again, my name's Jeff Abrams. I think we're all familiar, but for those who may be watching, I serve as a captain for the Sheriff's School Safety Division. He's entrusted me with really what we know is a relatively new thing, especially at the scale with which we're doing it. The last time we spoke, we had that vision in place, but had not yet gotten to the staffing level that we wanted to. I can't say enough about how successful I feel like it's been. Certainly appreciate the court's support for us and trying to do that. I think it's a great thing that we're doing and protecting the most vulnerable in our society. I think we really are setting the precedent to be looked upon by the rest of the state as people strive to get to that level. And certainly the Franklin County School District and Superintendent Cobb have been phenomenal and supportive of me in this role, as well as serving as a safety coordinator for the schools. The sheriff and I, we just spoke a little bit, and we thought it might be a good time to just update a little bit. From my past life, and as commander in a law enforcement setting, I'm not a huge fan of stats because in law enforcement, I've always argued that if we're really doing a good job, there should be nothing to report. Obviously, that's not always going to be the case, but that's not to say that there isn't some value in them. So what I wanted to look at is this time last year, it was myself plus 5 from August to December. And then, of course, we moved this year to where we're at full staff, so we have 12 SROs plus myself. So essentially, we've a little more than doubled. So these statistics you see here are from 2022, and this is going to be a little more than I want. And again, I understand that you guys will get a copy of that, so hopefully you'll be able to look a little more closely, but I'll kind of run through it. So as you can see here, these are the August through December stats for 2022, and if we could go to the next slide. Okay, so same time period, but just 1 year later with twice the staff. So, and again, those that you can look at on your own time. And I've got a slide that'll break it down kind of succinctly. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a comparison. So this is what I'll show in the next one. But as you can see, what we have here is obviously the month, and then the contacts, which what I put as a contact, we contribute monthly as a team to our overall, what I would call law enforcement interactions. And as you all know, I mentioned when we first started to try to build on this program, law enforcement is very low on our priority list of what we want to do and the service we want to provide in the schools. But it still does exist, and certainly, we have very little tolerance for any kind of mass threats of violence, zero tolerance for drugs. So we have a very narrow window of what we try to actually impose enforcement action on. But that's what a contact would be. Obviously, the charges are the charges, whether that be juvenile or adult. And then on the right-hand column, it shows you the number of drug-related offenses, and those also are trending downward. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of the breakdown, but despite the increasing, literally more than doubling our manpower, our overall law enforcement contacts are down for the same time period by 42 compared to the previous year, which is counterintuitive. You would think more police officers, more contacts, but my hope is that our presence is suppressing that behavior as opposed to having to enforce it. Overall calls for criminal charges had decreased by 12 in that time period, and the total drug charges decreased by 10 for the comparison time frame. So my hope is that this statistic is illustrating that, again, our presence is trying to not only avoid where we can, we certainly don't want a school to prison pipeline. That's absolutely not our goal. But we do want to hold them accountable and make sure that our schools are safe and those substances and that behavior is not tolerated in the building. So what do? We counsel, we coach, we teach, we mentor. So what I wanted to do, I reached out and the vast majority of our time, and hopefully the more time that goes on, it'll be more of this than anything. But I started looking and talking to the SROs at the various schools, and I said, hey, the sheriff asked me to put together this quick presentation to kind of illustrate to the court the successes that we're seeing. And I go in and out of their offices, and their walls are painted with these things. They're everywhere. And I said, hey, send me a picture or two. Well, they just inundated me. I mean, they've got them everywhere. And the love that these kids show for the SROs. I had one SRO in particular was working a high school basketball game with me not too long ago, and the kids from his school had participated with the Western Hills High School dance team in their summer camp, and so they have them come in and do a dance with them at a ball game when the season starts. And probably 20 of his kids from his school were there, and I mean, they just loved him and hugged him and ran over and, officer this and officer that. So they really do love us. This is Deputy Nicholson. This was a recent DARE graduation over at West Ridge, and as soon as the graduation was over, the teacher that was running it, she said, well, if anybody'd like to say anything to Officer Nicholson, come on down. And I caught this one before they absolutely mobbed him, but you can just kind of see how much the kids really do appreciate and value the SROs, and the relationships they've built are really special. This is one I wanted to talk just a moment on. This is Officer Little, or Deputy Little. He is the SRO at Elkhorn Middle School. This picture was taken, and that's Lottie Boyd, one of his deans of students there behind him. They had a pretty good group of kids that were truant, they were tardy, they were behavioral issues, they had grade issues. And he and Ms. Boyd and some other staff created a mentor group with those kids. And throughout the year, they have seen a drastic decrease in their tardiness, in their absence, improvements in their behavior and grades. So because of the success of the group, he and the staff, and I stopped by and snapped a couple of photos and maybe flipped a sausage patty or two, but they put together a big breakfast for those kids, and that was just before we dismissed for the Christmas break. But this is just one really good example of we're doing more than policing, right? We're trying to change lives. So and they're so committed to it. Mark is one that is absolutely, he does not want anyone else to be in his school. He wants to handle and take care of his kids. He doesn't miss an event. He goes to things that don't require security just because he loves the kids and wants to be there to support them. Next slide, please. Obviously, the academy, that's an alternative school. A lot of these kids can have some pretty significant behavioral issues. Right now, we just recently promoted Rick Rogers to sergeant, and he has absolutely knocked it out of the park out at the academy. But what they're doing here is, back in the spring, he had harvested a wild turkey, and so he took it out and taught those kids, and they actually cooked it, and they loved it, and they had a great time. So he revisited that this fall they were making deer jerky, and so he had a great response and feedback from the kids on that. But again, it's about building rapport. Next slide, please. This is Deputy Johnson at Western Hills High School. These are just a couple examples of the artwork that kids have made for him and brought by, and again, his office is full of. Next slide, please. This is a special needs kid out Franklin County that Deputy Kelly that's out there. A quick example of all the cards and things, and not all, but a good sample of them that he's gotten in appreciation from his students. And Andrew, I don't know if those will play, but those are both embedded videos. If you could play the one on the left, we'll see if it'll. I guess we're not going to have any volume. Anyway, obviously this special needs student, it just loves Deputy Kelly. They're actually singing Bad Boys, Bad Boys. and so they do that real often. And on the right, you see the little girl getting ready to stand up with the red backpack. The day before, there was a very unfortunate kind of a domestic violence incident that Officer Kelly was able to, or Deputy Kelly was able to intervene in. And you could see there, she asked the staff to have him come back, and so he just went back to check on her, and she hopped up and hugged him and was appreciative of that. So I think that may be the last one. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So basically, that's it. I mean, I just wanted to report that I'm really appreciative of the Sheriff's Office. I think what we're doing is really making a huge impact on our schools, and I couldn't be prouder of the team that they've been able to help me put together, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd like to say thank you, because, when we started talking about putting officers in every school, I think I was pretty upfront about, why do we need officers in school and things like that. But I will say, after your pitch, at the beginning of this year, and then, even now, it's a lot more than that. And I think we all know here, we got to get to these kids. If we wait too much longer, we've missed the boat. So I appreciate the school system stepping up to get them in there. I think we are probably the first county in the state to have SROs in every school. So
we are very well
we
among.
Appreciate what you and your team do. So
thanks, sir.
Kelly, or JW, somebody have a question?
Well, I just want to say, I think you guys are doing a phenomenal job, and I work with a lot of these kids, and the difference in how they feel about police officers now as compared to the way they used to feel about them, because the only time they saw them was when mom or dad was being carted off, is vastly different, and it's important. Thank you very much.
Squire Blackburn.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys again. I've seen a tremendous difference. I think a lot of people in the community might think, well, we have a police presence in the school, and I think it's quite the opposite. Your presence, y'all have a presence there, you're part of the school. You're not a police presence, you're just another part of the whole system that makes it work better. And, going to any sporting event, I go to almost every single one that Franklin County has, and you're always there. Everybody's there. And, the football team, they're like, come back here, boys, and get you a barbecue sandwich. They're glad you're there. Everybody's glad you're there. And it's relationships and it's community building. It's not just policing and looking out for bad guys. It's part of the big family picture, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Alrighty. Sheriff, I'm going to have you go ahead and come up, and we're on item number 3. This is the, received the report from the audit for 2022.
Yes, and we had 0 findings and 0 comments, so our record's good for now. I just hope it continues. Our
Easy.
luck's gonna run out eventually. but,
Don't say that. Don't say
We're
that.
gonna keep doing our best to continue the record.
Any questions on this item? Alrighty. Go ahead. Your mics, yeah.
$48,000 in interest that he earned, which goes to help us not have to pay you extra money. And the other question I got tied to that is I should have asked earlier, the $400,000 you get from the state, is it interest-free?
It is.
Good question, Squire. Alrighty, next agenda item. State Events Program for calendar year 2024.
Yeah, we talked about it a little today, but it's $400,000, and it helps fund us until we actually start having revenue sources. Our money comes mainly in November. We had $42 or $43 million in the bank, but it's only for a couple of weeks and it's gone. If we could keep that all year, I asked the bank how much interest could I make off that. He said $37,000 a week.
Oh, wow.
And they would love to pay me that every week, he said. That's what the rates are doing right now.
Yeah. All right, any question, Squire Wisman?
Yeah, Sheriff, thanks for coming in. I'm wondering, just in your experience, the advancements at the month that they end for August, they're generally upside down just a little bit. I'm wondering if we've ever had a situation where there has not been funds for a period to float.
No, fortunately, we talk about asset forfeiture. A lot of times that gets us through on trainings, equipment, things that we probably couldn't buy if we didn't have it. So we haven't had that issue.
Thanks.
All righty, next agenda item, Sheriff, is the lump sum fee for budget 2024.
So this is, we're asking for $150,000 in additional lump sum, which I'll break it down. A lot of it is surplus. I put in $30,000 in our cameras because we're planning on upgrading the cars and body cams. So what we'll do, we'll get money for them, but we'll have to have the spending authority, just like when we sell cars. Our weapons, I put in $30,000 because we don't just have handguns. We have backup handguns, rifles, tasers, beanbags, pepper ball guns. There's a lot of weapons that, when you say weapon system, it takes it all in. So we're gonna do some maybe surplus and hopefully upgrading. And then the one thing that's different this year, I put in $40,000 additional dollars for our building maintenance. There's usually $1,000 in that line, but we're gonna try to expand our garage for more room for evidence, put in the water line finally, the internal bathroom, and then if we have any money left, we'd like to upgrade the front counter. The drawers for the tax collection, they only open halfway. You can't even get a money drawer in there, so we're hoping if there's a little bit left, we're gonna try to redo those cabinets. So instead of asking the court for money, I just put in our budget based on our projections and increased commissions. The other $50,000 remaining, I put in $20,000 in vehicle maintenance simply because we have 7 more deputies now. So it's just, if you do tires, brakes, simple, we're not doing oil changes because our 10 out of 13 are electric vehicles, but it's still, that's only $2,215 a car. And that's just wiper blades, tires, brakes, the basics. And last, I put in $30,000 in our training. The biggest piece of this is our mental health plan. Chief could probably tell you better than me, but I'll do it. He done such a good job earlier. But basically, what we're wanting to do is build an in-house program where anytime we have a critical incident, this person comes in and, gives us a little time, and each deputy and staff member will get at least one trip a year to just go talk, make sure everything's good. And then we added some trainings in there for spouses and the employees. I think it's important, and that's kind of where a lot of agencies are going, so we want to get out first and see how it works for us.
So I'm gonna ask you a question. The building, you're talking about adding on to the building that we're trying to get the sewer and water to now?
Yes, and that's why we need that in first, because the expansion will be on top of it.
Okay.
Once we get the water line in and the sewer, then we can add the other 2 bays we're hoping. Part of that's for evidence, and the other part is for car washes.
Okay.
When I got here, this office was spending 25 to 30 grand a year on Freddie car wash passes, and I was like, no. So what we do, we buy the stuff, you can wash your car outside, but the problem is in the winter, we have to shut the water off because it freezes. So we're hoping to have a little bay that's heated where you can pull in there and detail your car.
And to let the court know, in our budget this year, we had the tap fees for the sewer and water, and then the sheriff was taking care of the rest of it, the pipe and stuff like that, right? So, Squire Sebastian.
No, thank you, Judge. Sheriff, you mentioned about the evidence. In a prior court, we talked about using the current facility for evidence. So is this like vehicular evidence that you
Well,
can't get in the
no.
basement?
Yes,
Or is
this
this
is stuff
because
you
this
wouldn't
is-
put in your house, because
Yeah.
basically the building we're in is like a house. So
Yeah.
if you put gas-powered generators, power tools, propane tanks, four-wheelers, all that stuff, it has to be locked up. It stinks up the whole office. So what we did, we gave a partial bay to our evidence guy, which he's already outgrown it. I mean, we're just doing more than we ever did with stolen items. So what we're gonna do is fix it to where that bay is a whole bay instead of like how it is now.
Does it have to be a bay that's enclosed
It is.
in any way on all
Yes,
sides?
it's alarmed,
Locked.
has cameras, and there's only 2 people with a key. He and his backup have access.
Just trying to clarify
Yes.
that for everybody. since
We actually is
there
drywalled,
isn't.
so it's not like you would think a chain link fence where everybody could
Yeah.
see. It's like, I really don't know what's in there. I've been in there one time, but I know the things that we do put in there.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, seeing no more, let's move on to the next one. Next one is annual order setting the maximum for deputies and assistants for 2024.
So that brings the total to $3,167,867, and that's benefits, package, and salaries for the entire year. And that does include a 1.5 cost of living. Based on our conversations I've had, I feel like that's the direction we're headed. If that changes in January for the others, we can come back and we can always do an amendment. I used to think it was horrible if you had to, but now it's like, you almost, with insurance claims you don't know and payouts, you almost have to do one every year, it seems like.
And I do want to let the court know that last week that the sheriff and chief came in and met with our treasurer, Amy, and Jack to go over all these things to make sure we're all on the same page. Or it's probably longer than that, but yeah, so we appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, I jokingly told everybody I passed the preliminary here.
Any questions on this one? All right.
Cleft fund.
It's the
payment,
training incentive for
Yes.
the folks that are certified, POP certified. Once you say you retire and you lapse, once you get it back, you start getting that, what is it, $4,300 a year.
It's not tied to cost of living, that's just flat, every year is the same, may change it occasionally, I guess.
Every now and then, there's a little bump, but that's how it's been for a while.
Alrighty, and I believe your last agenda item is about some trade-in for Gov Deals.
Yes, that's actually our last Crown Vic, which I drove today, and one of the...
You look a little sad, you're gonna get rid of it, man. Yeah.
I actually thought about doing some resolution to like preserve it where it's maybe part of the county heritage, so before we actually sell, we might revisit this one.
Okay.
But I was watching, there's videos of other agencies that actually keep an old car, kind of like the Mayberry car, where it'd be protected if another sheriff came in and didn't want it. It would be like the court's car, you know?
Yeah.
That way you got 7 people instead of 1 that can control it. But it would be good for the heritage recruiting, and this particular car actually was one of the cities, so that's never happened that I know of. It was a city police car and they donated it to us, so it's kind of cool. So I may revisit the Crown Vic,
Okay. Any questions on these?
just to talk.
Alrighty, Sheriff, we appreciate you and your team. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Now, I believe Ron and Laura are here from the jail to see us and wish us a Merry Christmas.
Hello,
How you guys doing today?
doing well, how about you?
I'm doing fabulous. What do you have for us?
We have a Amtech annual inspection contract renewal. This is the company that we have contracted with for many years to service and inspect our fire alarms, sprinkler systems, fire hydrants, the kitchen hood, fire extinguisher, that sort of thing. So we're asking that contract be renewed.
Just let everybody know, has this gone up at all? What was the contract for the past year, please?
It has not gone up. I know the company name might look new. They switched their name last year to Amtech. It was formerly Teasley.
Okay. Same price though, pretty much? Okay. Any questions on this agenda item? Squire Sebastian?
Yes, so it's Joe's company, Joe Teasley?
I don't know if he's still
He
involved
sold
with
it.
it.
He sold
He is
it,
still
okay.
involved, though, yes.
The only reason I ask is because it doesn't give us an address for where that is, and it's part of the,
It does. I think
it's just cut off on our paperwork, so, but maybe somebody else shows the address. So my,
I'm sorry, they're in Lexington.
okay, my only question is it talks about, a contractual clause in there discusses like scheduled appointments, cancellations, and what occurs, I guess, if inspections are not completed due to some request, like if there was some incident at the time that they arrived on scene. And so it talks about drive time or travel time being included, and I didn't know if they were like flying in or, you know.
Drive-in.
So
That's-
it's in Lexington, that helps me
Right, and
understand.
that's not ever been an issue.
Yeah.
We have multiple people, in the event that the maintenance director was tied up with something else, that could take this individual around the jail and
Okay.
do inspections.
Do you all know, I'm assuming sufficient funds are available in the line item that this is assessed to
This would be
cover this?
maintenance, so
Yep.
there will be. I know today's the second reading of getting that.
Okay, so this will be in the maintenance line item?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah, and I know we're making a budget transfer, so I just wasn't sure about that because there's a mention in here about the travel time to and
Right.
from, so, thank you.
Any other questions on this agenda item from the court? Squire Whitman?
The contract on this one, sorry, I had to step out for a second. It just doesn't specifically state the jail property. It only is addressed to the jail property. I'm just wondering if we should add language that it's the inspection of the jail facility somehow there.
I would
It's
defer to
assumed.
the county attorney. I think you've had time to review this, so if that's something that you would like to do, I'm sure.
It's assumed in the address, but it just doesn't explicitly state it, and as a contract to sign, I thought that was an addition we should add.
I think I've reviewed the contract, and I think it's adequate setting forth the property that it applies to.
Sorry.
I said I think it adequately sets forth the property that it applies to.
Squire Tracy?
Thank you, Judge. Quick question, is there any of these line items that the actual fire department or any of our groups or the city groups could do as far as inspections? I know they go out and inspect a lot of the restaurants per se and other businesses in the community. I'm just
I would have to say I don't know the answer to that question, but we can find it out.
just wondering.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Chief Brewer's here, could he address that?
So the question was if the fire department could complete that?
Well, there's a list here.
There's a
There's a lot of
list of
stuff.
7 or 8 line items.
All that takes specialized equipment to complete those tests. And I assume the hydrant is probably a private hydrant as well. Typically, it's best to have an outside source, third party entity do this just for liability reasons as well, just to confirm that. I know there's certain tools that they use to actually test each individual alarm, so we would not have that equipment.
So I guess just to piggyback, before a restaurant opens up, they have to have an inspection by the city fire marshal.
Correct.
Is there anything in that list that the city fire marshal could do?
You have to confer with him to be sure. Most times, from my understanding, he will note deficiencies, and a company like this would be the one to come in and repair it. So they would note deficiency and repair it. stuff like this. I'm not sure if he'd be able to actually identify and fix any problems.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
But this contract's not for repair, this just for inspection. Is that correct?
Correct.
'Cause, I mean, it'd be pretty unrealistic for somebody to commit to repair the stuff with that money.
Yeah, all the repairs were set.
Yeah, I believe the fire marshal just checks to make sure that they are inspected and approved by those companies.
Thank you, Chief. All righty, we'll move on to the next one. Jail Policy Procedure Manual.
You'll see here, we have two policy changes, one that deals with our visitation policy. Prior to the sheriff taking over the jail, we were having in-person visitation. That requires a lot of time and effort by the employees. We just don't have the staff to do that, so we no longer have in-person visitation. We have tablet visitation. The inmates have access to a tablet, a telephone, and a chirp, which is a texting device. So I really anticipated we'd get a lot of complaints. I don't know of one. You answer the phone more than I do, so I don't think we've had any complaints on that, so that would reflect that policy. And then the mail policy, we no longer accept in-person mail at the jail for inmates. That's a security risk. Anything that can be mailed into the jail, you can get contraband in that way. So now mail goes to an off-site location where it is scanned and then sent to the inmates on their tablets. So they get the same, level of contact, but they just don't get the exact piece of paper. And those are the two policy changes that we're seeing.
Squire Sebastian, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Just a quick question. Other correctional facilities are utilizing that same mail protocol?
It's basically the standard now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just so everybody's clear that it's not setting us apart in any way. We're following a pattern of protocol now across the industry. Thank you.
Squire Dykes.
Does it cost families money, though, to use the tablets,
No.
to get in contact with them that way?
No, the mail goes in just like they,
Not with the mail, I'm sorry, if they want to talk to an inmate,
Like the visitations.
yes, that's something that they need to pay for.
but they
currently.
wouldn't have to if they were able to come in and talk to them.
Well, so we have on-site visitation where you can come in and visit on the tablet, but at our facility. You can visit on the tablet anywhere that you have Wi-Fi. And so we have 2 kiosks available for those that can't afford it, and they can come up to the jail and do that.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good question, thank you. Any other questions on this agenda item?
Judge, just one. I thought there should be a one-word change to the proposed change for the mail correspondence. The second page in our, it just says that letters or personal correspondence letters for inmates are scanned to text behind and accessible through tablets provided to inmates. And shall be or something. It just doesn't, the way it reads just was a thing to me. And are available or are accessible, but I like shall be accessible so that it's a mandate that it is.
We can do that, that's no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was all.
All righty. Ron, Laura, we appreciate all the work you're doing at the jail, and thank you.
Yes, sir.
All righty, next. I believe Penny is on Zoom, if I'm not mistaken. Right, there she is. There's Penny, and then is anybody else come up to the podium? Okay. Perfect. You wanna
I'm
introduce
Lauren
yourself?
Wolf with DBL Law. Penny and I are reversing our roles today, so I'll let we'll kind of do the way we did last time. I'll let Penny kind of kick off, and then I'll be available to answer questions.
Thank you.
Oh, and I should say too, we also have Jason Taylor here again, and then their general counsel, Kelly Mullins, with Equity Management Group.
Thank you for being with us. Penny, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
Oh, it's just real low. I can.
Andrew, we're not hearing her. Hold on, Penny, we're trying to get this worked out.
Yashis.
Do you want to go ahead while we're waiting on that? Do you want to go ahead? I knew we had a call yesterday with our treasurer, Amy, who just left. I don't know where she went. So, but there were some changes we had talked about making, and those
Correct.
were made. And I believe everybody has the amended copies. Can you just explain a little bit what those changes were?
Sure. As Judge said, we met with Judge and Amy Quatman and just kind of go through really thinking about compliance and sort of next steps and what this will look like. And one item that came up is that section 4.6 of the local development area agreement says meet as needed. And then the corresponding section 5.2, meet as necessary. So in conversation, we thought, well, why don't we add language that says at least once annually? And the reason, and that's the change you'll find in this First Amendment, prior to the submission of the agency of the August 1st annual report. And we're really just trying to think about, over the next 20 years, how this will work from a staff perspective and reporting to the various bodies. So my suggestion was to align it. That's that the finance director for the city is required to report the calculation of the incremental revenues. So this requires the city, the county, the developer to sit down once before August. And so, and where I'm thinking too is that I've been talking to city staff about, once we kind of get through this process of the transfer of the land, is that we're actually going to just comb through everything and we're going to create a compliance checklist. It sounds kind of boring and obvious, but I think it's really important because we'll work with Amy and I'll work with Alicia Boyd, Attorney Milam, and we're in the, of course, include the county attorney. And what we'll do is we're just going to map it out, one meeting per year, and as needed, and what that'll look like, and get it on staff's calendars, and we're going to do that right away. So that was the reason behind the August 1st. I thought that would kind of align well from a staff perspective, because everybody's going to be talking and doing the work of calculating the incremental revenues anyway, so that's a great time. But again, there are other sections that talk about the finance agency reporting to the legislative bodies. So that means on that checklist will be Alicia Boyd coming annually and presenting those incremental revenues.
Hey, Penny, can you try it again?
Yes.
There we
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yeah, we have you now.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for having us here today, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but we want to thank you for your full partnership in this effort. The county did enter into a partnership with the city of Frankfort on May the 1st, 2022 for this potentially catalytic economic development project in Franklin County. And so we want to thank you today. We want to put a fine point to our partnership and how that will be executed as the development moves forward. You have the developers here with you today and our attorney, Lauren Wolf, to ask any questions, but we thank you for your consideration as we execute the necessary documents to get this project to the finish line.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask the court now. I know we had a good meeting last week and discussed a lot of this. Is there any questions that we have for the attorney or Penny or the developers? Everybody's here, basically in the room, so. And I do appreciate you all making those changes. And Squire Sebastian, I think maybe Squire Tanner brought those up, and it is nice to know. And I think a lot of the comments were, we know what's going on, but after we're gone, it's a long tiff. And to the council's point, 10 years from now, somebody can pick up that contract and say, hey, the city needs a representative there, the county needs a representative there. It's a true team effort, so I appreciate you working yesterday afternoon to make those changes. Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. And so, based on your comment, I will just follow up on that. So now the county is a full partner in the meeting structure, and then we will hear all of the things based on, I guess, that August 1 trigger
Right.
date.
And all we did here to Squire Sebastian was, this was a requirement
Yeah.
already, but this just made it more specific. And, you know, to the judge's point, I'm always thinking of these of, we're all long gone. This is a 20-year TIF,
right.
and we're sitting around 10 years from now. And meet as needed sounds more optional. So really, we're just kind of putting a little bit of a period on an existing requirement.
Right, so section 4, number 7, that's gonna, that is now decided.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
the city approved it today.
Okay,
They had their
fantastic.
second reading.
So looking at section 7, identification and pledge of incremental revenues, item number 3 talks about an interest-bearing account being set up. All amounts in the special fund, together with interest accruing thereon, are hereby irrevocably pledged to the payment of the public infrastructure costs. So my question is in regard to number 4 of that, now that that is set up, where it talks about, at the termination date, all amounts not needed to pay public infrastructure costs shall be transferred to the general fund of the city and the county in proportion to the respective contributions. Interest is not a respective contribution. So how is that going to be addressed? I just want to be real clear on that.
Yeah,
So that we all
that's a great
understand
question. That is a question for Alicia Boyd. I don't know, Penny might have thoughts, but this is the exact kind of question that, you know, when we're going to come through this and write down these sort of lists of things and requirements. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to just take this back to Alicia, and we'll just keep this on our list for things to report back.
So how do both parties, the city and the county, how are we assured that this will be one of those items that it gets buttoned up? Because we had some questions when we discussed this earlier, and now some of those have been addressed. And so I just want to make sure, because this interest, you know, this is a considerable amount of money. And
Yeah.
as we heard the sheriff talk earlier, we talked in regard to interest and how that bears. And the market is fantastic. Who knows 6 months
Sure.
from now? Who knows next month?
Sure. Well, I'm hesitant, always hesitant to wade into finance questions when I'm just the lawyer, but I will say the county and the city are each pledging 50%. So my guess is that you would get 50%, each get 50% of the revenue, or the interest at the end of the term.
I'm assuming the same thing, but as we've all said, you know, 20 years is a long time. Most of us will probably not be here, and memories, unfortunately, if it's not written on a piece of paper, memories do fade. So
Well, I will say
I would like for it not to be silent, at least, so that we understand what's going to happen with that, because we would all love for this to bring in a considerable amount of interest, because then that gets us to our number more rapidly.
Sure, and I think, you know, the phrase, the respective contributions, that would honestly be my recommendation, because then every year there's going to be a report of the incremental revenues. That is probably the most important thing that happens annually when someone is administering a TIF. So there will be a clear, and it has to be reported to the legislative body. It's not reported to staff, reported to the bodies. That means somebody has to show up at a public meeting and say it for the record. So that will live forever. So I think that is one thing, you know, at the end of the 20 years, there will be a very clear public record of which body contributed which revenues. Because you're right. I mean, there could be, we've lived through strange times in recent years, and there could be a scenario where this gets amended and city's contributing 40 and the county's doing 60, but that would all get amended. And my recommendation was to leave it as respective contributions, because then that will account if for some reason that percentage changed over time. But that will all be public record. This is not going to live in somebody's computer and somebody's file and somebody's drawer.
Unfortunately, most government things sit on a shelf, so. I just, again, I made several notes about that, so I would like to maintain that as part of our discussion record so that it is addressed.
Penny, do you want to take a stab at that since you're with us?
Well, I do think that is addressed in the legal document, but I think if there is a request to put a further fine point to it, that's something that we can take back, and it doesn't materially change what we're discussing. It just puts a finer point to it, and I think Lauren has tried to answer the question by saying that she feels that the language is there to ensure that those payments in and any interest earned are shared equally based on how the language is written. But if there is further question about it, we can certainly look into it further.
So I'll advocate for that, because again, there are times when subtle points, this may be a subtle point today, it may be a very salient point in 6 months, 2 years from now. So I just...
But I understand, and thank you for that. And Lauren, what am I hearing you say, and your the information that you're providing to the court is that the language is there, the intent is there, and what we can do is work to put a finer point to that, but it does not materially change the agreement, or because the TIF is all recorded in statute, how it is to be executed. So our only recourse, I believe, would be to put a finer point and underline those items to which we've had the request, but it doesn't really materially change the agreement.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that characterization, I would.
In that sense, we will insert what we can to make sure that point is underscored to Squire Sebastian's question. It's excellent. And with all of the things that we've been discussing over the last week, the point is to clarify this partnership. This is a 50-50 partnership. It is a potentially very large, very catalytic project for the city and the county, and we want to work on it together because it is such an incredible opportunity.
May I ask
And the timeliness, of it is simply that we expect this transfer to happen right after the first of the year, and we want to make sure that we have done everything we can to help that happen and to help move the development along. Is that helpful?
It is, yeah, thank you. I think she has another question.
I do. Section 6, number 3, it talks about the city finance department, I guess, to preparing not later than August 1st an annual report. So some of the things that were discussed earlier, kind of like the checklist, are those the type of things that you will, that is, I guess, have been discussed that will be in that annual report?
Yes.
Because it's very vague in what would be in the report. So and these are some questions I've had previously, so I'm just, again, reiterating those.
No, and those are great questions because it's where my head is too. We obviously want to get the property transferred and get shovels moving and get the project on the way, but, and I wasn't the original drafter of this original agreement, and this original agreement was happening when there were good plans, but it was also a lot of hopes and wishes, and we are well beyond hopes and wishes now. So, that's the sort of art and science of these types of agreements, is that you wanna make them clear so that when some finance director 5 years from now is reading this thing, figuring out what they need to do, or the county treasurer, that we're building in, but we also need to leave it flexible enough so that we don't have to go through this whole process again every time we sort of change. And so that's kind of the spirit of how we were drafting and making these changes, the project's a little more specific now. So in terms of timeline and what the project will look like. And so I don't think I'm answering your question. So if you want to.
You were okay with that. I'm okay with what you said.
So yes.
I cut through it and I got right to what you mean.
When we do compliance checklists, whether we're working with a government or a real estate developer at my firm, we have someone who combs through, reads this whole thing, and anytime it looks like it's something somebody has to do, it goes on that list. And then,
That's the key point for what is going to
Yes.
be in that annual report, because it could be very broad. And I mean, I think we as a body, we may start out with one vision. There may be bodies 6 years from now who are completely different than us, and they need some kind of understanding of what is advancing with.
well, and this is one of those things, and I'm a lawyer, I love detail, but an annual report, I think will give you all the flexibility to work with the city over time to say what you want in that, you know. Yes, technically, Alicia Boyd would just have to come up here and say, this was the old revenues, this is the
That's
new
exactly right.
revenues. Here's the
And that's
incremental
it.
revenues, and goodbye.
That's correct.
But I think if we start putting too much detail in the in this document, then it won't give you all the flexibility to, because they might say, well, here's the 3 things that have to be in there. Does that kind of make sense? I think that's a great thing to be worked on between staff and between you all and the respective legislative bodies, what needs to go into that annual report. My advice would be, if we define it too much, it might sort of box them in too
And again,
much.
that was not the point that I raised to lay out a litany of 14 things, but for us to make sure that we kind of put some, I'll call it the picture frame. I like to work in terms of what the picture frame is. We can worry about the details as we're making the masterpiece.
Sure.
So I have one other question.
Go ahead, Squire.
In regard to Section 13, is there the probability that we could name Franklin Circuit there? Can that be specified?
Laws of commerce should govern.
If we come to any kind of, in your profession, I'm sure you come.
Well,
to
I would
certain
actually defer to the county attorney, but I think if Franklin County and the city of Frankfurt sued each other, I think it would have to be
I would
or be
presume the
federal
same.
court.
I would presume the same, but you know, I ask it every time. So today's no different.
I think depending on the type of action that it would be, because you may have a federal court action, you may have a state court action, so clearly putting in there that it has to be the Franklin Circuit Court, depending on the type of lawsuit that it's coming from, I don't think you can pinpoint that specific. I think generalizing the laws of the Commonwealth of Kentucky or what govern this document is probably more appropriate. But like I said, there may be various types of lawsuits, and so you don't know the venue that you'll truly be in until that situation arises.
Just making the statement as I do every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Squire. Any other, Squire Wisman?
Yeah, Judge. Can we take a step back just a moment, because Squire Sebastian brings up a great point that I had made note of. The city is effectively maintaining this on our behalf, and I'm always cognizant of adding more language when we have the opportunity to, is the right time to do it. We often have these conversations in these bodies, and we have, the conversation makes us feel good, but then it's vague within a year, right? So I'm wondering if the conversation around the respective investments might not need to be just fleshed out, and I would favor fleshing that out just a little bit more right now.
Can you give me can you give me the exact paragraph so I can kind of
I
follow?
don't have that. I didn't.
Oh,
I was
okay.
making a note to myself more so that the respective investment would be equal to each party's percentage of investment, including any interest earned. I mean, just a little bit more so that is there, that it's clear that we've thought of that, and that any point in time it could be referenced in the future, that there's no vagueness in what is respective of each party's investment in
So
the project.
you're talking about how the process, which Squire Sebastian was referring to, which is
Correct.
section 7.3, that what the money goes into, the county puts revenue and the city puts revenue into the special fund, and then the interest.
So I want to be very clear that the city's not holding an interest account for us and claiming that that interest is theirs because they held the funds and they're managing the fund, right?
Sure.
That anything that's put in there, including interest, will be divided respective of our percentage of investment, because that could change in the future, as you spoke to, whatever that is for the year, that we're reflecting that. So I would just favor adding that language, and I know that probably means a draft going back to the city, but this is the time to do it. And I've experienced where that has been an issue before, that the city holds an account and claims the interest is theirs for other shared activities. So
Well, the next section 4 is what covers that. It says that the termination date, all amounts, the amounts provided for in the previous section, all amounts not needed to pay public infrastructure costs. So at termination date, that's the end of the 20-year period, shall be transferred to the general fund of the city and county in proportion to the respective contributions.
that's where I'm saying that respective contributions should also say perhaps equal to each body's respective contributions, percentage of respective contributions, including any earned interest.
Okay.
I'm just saying, is that perhaps a way to clarify? Asking council to look at that. And then, as far as reporting, I'm wanting to make sure and maybe I missed it, that you could verify for me the amendment that we have that indicates the August 1st annual report, that is for the previous fiscal year, or is that a projection for the future year? And it might be inclusive of both, but we don't specify just yet. I wonder if we can perhaps do that so that we have, the county body can then look previous and anticipated.
Sure.
Which won't become an issue until we get near to the end of this thing, but hopefully it pays off and does well, and at 1 year, that will be a necessary review.
Well, and first I'll just say, and I think Penny can probably speak to this better than I can, but as soon as there's a business operating, there's going to be revenue generated. So this is going to start sooner than later. So that August 1st, so that is also a statutory requirement. So the finance director, as the representative agency, is required every year at that date to report what the incremental revenues were for the prior tax year. So that's what that August 1st report is.
I get that. I'm wondering if I'm just thinking through how this is actually going to work, if there might not be an opportunity for us to ask for a projection based on the previous year for the following year as well, so that there's a little bit of a post and a pre-review for this future body to look at every term.
Okay.
Just a talking point, I suppose, but I suppose that could be more of a requirement in your checklist as a preference for this body to see rather than a legal language change.
Well, and I would also, this applies to the city as well, it might just go for one reporting, and then you all can issue an actual order, and again, this is, we're all thinking about things not getting lost in email inboxes and file cabinets, is, issue an order, what you want in that first report. That would be my suggestion, because then Amy will have a chance to have worked with Alicia, and, you'll hear a report, and at that time, I feel like you'll kind of have a sense of, hey, this is what we'd like to hear in that report. And then you can issue an order. Again, this becomes part of the public record.
Lauren, I just want to say thank you, because we've worked with another TIF attorney before, and I appreciate your help, because I think you see our intent and what we're trying to say, and I think you're being very helpful.
Well, thank you. I did work in government 8 years before.
All right,
if it shows, I don't know.
Maybe that's what it is, because I'm like, this is another world here. But you see, I think where Squire Wisman and Squire Sebastian's come from, similar to the conversation yesterday. So I think as long as everybody's best interest is put forward.
I'll echo that, Judge, that I appreciate that, because my thought is very much, I'm very skeptical of tying up future revenues, future taxpayers' funds for any project. I'm not a big fan. So anything that we can make a process more transparent and make sure that there's annual oversight of, I'm very much in favor. So, and my experience with the previous TIF has been less than transparent, let's say, so I appreciate that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that vantage point.
Before we move on, I guess I want to ask the developer, I mean, is there anything you want to add or anything, or will you just, I'm just asking. I mean, I think we had a really good meeting last week, and I think the attorney's doing a very good job as far as getting all this worked out, but since you were here, I wanted to address, see if you had anything.
We're super excited, and we got C-suite approval 2 days ago that we were waiting on, so we are ready to close.
Well, good.
So get us there, and you're going to see us start moving dirt if we can hurry the calendar up, get through Christmas and survive.
Understandable. Well, we're excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you all.
Squire Wisman.
Judge, question for Jason. I'm wondering if you can give us an estimated time frame of, once everything's approved, when you expect to have shovels in ground, and when you think you'll be announcing any
We
of the
will
businesses
announce,
that will be
within
here?
5 days of closure, we will announce the governor wants to make a show opinion. I think everybody, I think y'all do too. I think we should have a nice little event, and that'll be good. And our tenant can be announced, or a couple of people can be announced, and you can't do that today, but we're still under non-disclosure agreements, as you all can imagine. But as soon as we can close and see a deed recorded and having a tea party, we will have a tea party.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All righty, the next agenda item, I believe, is the estoppel. Does anybody have any questions for Lauren on this one? I think she explained it pretty well.
Lauren, could you just, because this was in a closed session last time that we met about this, if anyone in the public perhaps saw this and
This wasn't in closed session.
the estoppel?
It was not discussed in closed session.
It was in
Okay, do you want to go ahead and just
I'm
explain real
remembering
quick for anybody
incorrectly, but
watching?
could you, for
Sure.
the public's benefit,
Yes.
kind of review, because your recommendation before was you would generally not
Yes.
support signing one of these, but you thought in this instance particularly that we could move forward with this?
Correct. Estoppel agreements are routinely used in large real estate, even smallish commercial real estate transactions, and it's just basically where the seller is asked to verify certain facts of the status of the real estate. You know, the lease is in effect, there's no liens, it's kind of basic stuff. And basically, when you sign an estoppel agreement, you're just attesting to the facts. That's it. So when I review one, I say, is that true or is it not true? Typically, I would not recommend to a legislative body to sign an estoppel because there's just too many moving parts. A TIF that's been in place for a while, there might be a bond somewhere. And here, given the nature of this, it's a $148.5 million deal. A major retail anchor was asking for this, and the TIF has not done anything, and nothing has been built. So if you even just read the estoppel, it just says, it's so basic, every fact, everyone here in this room could read that estoppel and say, yep, it's all true. So this could be my only time doing this, so thank you for letting me say it in public.
All righty, and then the last one is the actual reading of the ordinance. Does anybody have any questions on the actual ordinance that will be read tonight? Penny, do you have anything else? Because I think we're about done with this agenda item until the voting session. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for their partnership and thank the developers publicly here for their investment in Franklin County. It's an exciting project, and I want to thank each of you for your part in it.
Thank you. Make sure no one has any other questions before we move on here.
Can I
Oh, please.
apologize.
Oh, I'm
I just
sorry.
want to be really clear about, am I being asked to actually change the language to that section? And I'm just clarifying because the city passed their ordinance today, so that would require going back through their first and second reading. Yeah. Yeah.
Can that be addressed by a resolution or order of the court rather than changing that? It's gonna delay things, it would appear to me like.
I mean, I'd rather not delay it.
But
I think we all want.
We,
I'd rather not delay it. But I think we all want to make sure that everything is clear, as we've discussed here for.
Max, what are your thoughts, Max? Yeah, I'm gonna lean on county
Our
attorney.
county attorney could give us good legal guidance here.
What's the best avenue without having to?
As I think you've heard the legal opinion stated earlier, it is the belief that that language covers the concerns of the county as set forth in the documents. so it would not be a material change to that documentation. So, there's a possibility to putting more fine points on it, but if it's the body's will to have those fine points put on before it's voted on, that's your all's choice. As you've heard, the legal opinion stated here today, it's a belief that the document covers it, but if you want those more fine points in there before you were willing to vote on it, then that's a situation that's going to have to be done.
Could we take a quick recess between the voting here and the voting session to ink that for?
And Lauren, I was going to ask, so how long do you stay involved in this project from a legal standpoint?
We really haven't talked about that other than last week. I'm going to work with the city on that compliance checklist. I am working with them on some other economic development matters, but we haven't really set a date, but I am going to be a part of the compliance process.
So would this be something that could go on a checklist as far as in your meetings coming up? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what I felt like too, so.
I'll be really honest, and I know I'm just kind of drafting on the fly here, but I don't know how I would say it any clearer than the interest at the end would be in proportion to the respective contributions, because that means you get whatever interest in proportion to what you get out, and I really don't know what I would draft.
Okay.
It can be in that.
Yeah, just as a checklist, yeah. I think we're okay with that. Court good with that? Everybody?
Well, if there's any necessity to change language, we can always amend this contract without holding up anything, right?
Yeah.
And come back, and it can began with us to send to the city for an update. I don't mind to move forward with it, just that understanding that we have that concern.
And I will, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Penny here, but, I will make a commitment that, I've made a note already that once that compliance checklist is complete, and again, we'll be working with Amy on that as well, and keep the county attorney informed, and, we'll come back and report on that checklist.
Well,
I'll make that commitment.
And I want to say thank you, and I want to go back to what Penny said earlier. We truly are a partner in this relationship, and I think the city approving to make those changes last minute, last night, shows that, we're all doing this for the right reason, and we appreciate the developer and everybody working on this project, because it will be transformational to Franklin County, so it's a good day, so I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Penny, thank you. All righty, next one, Robert. How you doing, Robert?
I'm well.
Good.
How are you, sir?
Good.
Good afternoon, court.
Your first one's on magisterial districts?
Yes, the reapportionment map.
Yep.
Took the liberty of fresh one, a little bit larger than what was in your packet.
Thank you.
So, this is an ordinance that amends ordinance number 8 adopted in 2023, in which you adopted the reapportionment based on the most recent complete census. After this ordinance was adopted, it was discovered that change to the 56 House District separated one of the magisterial districts, which would have created a separate. It would have been confusing for the voter. Anyway, so long story short, it would create a separate precinct. It's a very tiny portion. On the map in your packet, it was the tiny little red dot at the intersection of Stedmantown Lane and Shinkle Lane, so a tiny little shift.
This is well.
I'm sorry?
There's more red on the map that we were given. I was going to ask you to explain that. Here you go.
Well, that was what's in your packet.
Yeah.
Was in your packet. So this tiny little red dot was the change to the House District. The larger red area is Capitol View Park. Okay. And so the county clerk has recommended to the court that Capitol View Park, be transferred over, I think, to the 4th District, just to make sense of an ease for their office, and just logistically, it doesn't impact anyone, but it does change the census block numbers. So the new map shows the new realignment of the 3rd and 4th districts, so there are only 2 being impacted. And in the ordinance, under your therefore clause, the 3rd district would lose 14 individuals, and then the 4th district would gain 15 individuals, so it's basically a wash. And so this is just first reading of the ordinance, and unfortunately, the county clerk could not be here today to discuss this further, but if approved, this would be sent on to the Board of Elections. They're anxiously awaiting a final document.
So Robert, I just want to say for anybody watching, so the purpose of the pre-enforcement is done all over the state, correct? And what they were trying to do is get everybody's districts within 10%, is that accurate?
Yes, we strive for 5%.
Okay, but I mean, the minimum was 10%. So
Yes.
just anybody watching who doesn't understand this is a statewide initiative. We acted quickly on it with Bluegrass Ad and your help and the county clerk's help to basically get all the districts evened out a little bit better.
That is correct.
That's what we're looking at.
An even distribution of population for representation by this court.
Yep, perfect, thank you. All right, Squire Tracy.
Thank you. Robert, just to touch on the changes that you referenced, Squire Dykus and I think the whole court would agree that the changes that we had between 14 and 15 were just common sense changes. Ultimately, it was Schweitzer Road. She would go up about, the old magisterial district would go up about a mile, mile and a half, and then stop. So just common sense tells you, why go across the bridge, the creek, if you don't have to?
Exactly.
So, okay.
Exactly.
All right.
So sometimes common sense needs to come into play when you're.
Squire Wisman, I believe you had your hand up.
Yeah, could you just explain the Capitol View Park, what district is it in currently, and just go into that change just a little bit more?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't retain it. May I borrow it? Yeah, is that what, I'm sorry, it was in 2, yes.
This is just red, of course, it's not showing us
Yes.
exactly
And
what,
so-
just for clarification.
Well, it looks like it was in 6 and now it's going to 2. Is that right?
I never,
It could be that the map,
it was not my district previously.
From 2 to 6
okay. Very good.
is what it's.
Okay, yeah, oh yes, I see it. That makes sense to you? Not based on this map that I got this afternoon, right before the court meeting, so. No, sir, no. So when I prepared this ordinance, I only had the benefit of the map with the red dot on it, so I was like, I kind of need a new map. So if you'd like, I would recommend that maybe we table this. Let me get clarification on the mapping from the Bluegrass Ad so that it matches the ordinance and everything jives.
Is there any deadlines we have to worry about?
No, sir. Since we've already turned one in, Board of Elections knows that we're revising it.
So we're okay to table it?
We're fine, but.
Why can't we have a first reading, and in that way you can speed things up?
Okay.
Well, unless, just my concern is if there's an
error on
amendment
this page.
to this.
But we can ultimately change
language.
that prior to the second reading, right?
You can make
If
an
they're
amendment.
backwards.
You can make a motion to amend the ordinance.
You
so that
can,
pass
but it
two
may be
readings.
more clean to table it and make sure that language is, it's your all's choice, but
As long as we're not
To make it more
gonna miss a deadline. I
There's
mean, I'm
no-
fine with.
Deadline?
Yeah, there's no deadline.
Yeah.
If we could keep it clean, just, if you don't
Yeah,
mind, let's
okay.
table it. and
Table.
I will clear this up with
All
the
right.
Bluegrass Ad.
Keep moving.
Very good. Thank you all for your diligence on that.
Alrighty, next one is the resolution accepting Whispering Pines Drive and White Pine Court into the county road system.
Yes, so this is the Pinewood subdivision located off Leestown Road, US 421. This is the subdivision that was purchased by an out-of-town developer from a local bank, and then this developer completed all the public improvements, and then now the entire subdivision is completely built out in just over a year. Very nice addition of housing stock to Franklin County. Both the former road superintendent as well as the current road superintendent and I have done the inspections, gone over everything. We find that everything is in compliance with our county regulations. and we strongly encourage that the court accept these into our county road system.
I'm going to ask Squire Blackburn. If this is your district,
Oh,
correct?
yeah, it is.
that's
And there were some concerns when this was first, I think, brought to our attention. It was in the previous court.
Yeah, it was last year.
And, and Robert was very good with the former road superintendent. They fixed some drainage,
Yeah, there's a curb box
concrete,
inlet,
curb and gutters,
there
yes.
was some gutter sections.
some
yes.
sidewalk even.
Yes.
There was a question of trees, and I think through the homeowners association, former president there, we've all talked, everything was good. And what's the importance of bringing them into the road system, especially right now?
One is because if a road for a residential, or a road for a development, if it's not in our system, we're not allowed to expend any county funds on that. However, there is a provision in which that developer can sign an affidavit and provide it to the road department saying that the county will not be liable for any damages to that infrastructure, since it's not in our control. The developer did such a document, and it was on file, but the developer has now transferred this development to the association. So there will be no snow removal or any maintenance on these roads.
Until we
not
accept
brought
we
into the
adopt
system.
Yeah, until we accept it.
Correct. So there will be no county funds, no improvements or anything, no maintenance done until it's into the system.
I think Squire Blackburn's point, I mean, we're getting into snow season. I think
That is correct.
That's the biggest thing right now.
Yes.
Yeah, keep everybody safe. Squire Westwood, did you have a hand up?
Yeah. Wondering, Robert, if you can just speak to, because this road was laid out in 2007, it was built many years ago, it's only just been finished. Can you speak to its meeting standards? You already did a little bit, but I'm always concerned particularly about sidewalks, trees, landscape maintenance, or landscape mandates. They've met all of those standards. There was no variances or any particularly landscape plans seem to come up fairly often.
No, there were no variances or any sort of deviations granted to this development. The final plat was approved in 2006. Infrastructure began in 2007. The original developer failed to meet his financial obligations. One bank took it over, then another bank took it over. And so it was mothballed for a very long time. So within the last 2 years is when this out-of-town developer came in. So as we do for new developments, we require that the infrastructure be cambered, both storm sewer, sanitary sewer and such. Electric and water is installed by the Frankfurt Plant Board, so they're fine. But there were very large sections of subsurface infrastructure that had to be replaced, along with the road bed that in certain sections was failing by, seeping by a foot or so because of the subsurface infrastructure that had failed and collapsed. And so much of this had to be reconstructed, along with the road bed. So when the current developer who built the homes, when he acquired it from the bank who hired a prior developer, just the road base was down. Just, the subgrade and then the road base. And so from that point on, the most recent developer is the one that completed all the improvements. So everything's brand new. It's a beautiful looking development. Everything's fresh and brand new looking. And, now, in terms of street trees, I walked this street with the developer. I walked every inch of it. After all the infrastructure was put in, all the sewer cleanouts, water vaults, driveways, everything. And so I walked it and made an administrative decision on where a tree should go and where one should not. Okay? And so while you might say, okay, well, there's a gross amount of trees based on a linear distance of street, but in the real world, one can't go in the middle of a driveway. Okay? One won't go at an intersection because I don't allow for that, because I do not want a situation like Leonard Wood Drive when you're pulling out of Walmart. I'm not going to have it. That's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
And so I have the administrative discretion and the regulations to ensure public safety and also that of of the property owners which might be affected by these trees. So it's a beautiful development. I strongly encourage the court accept it.
Thank you. My concern is just the age, 20 years old, that we weren't going to accept something we were going to immediately have to repair, so I just like to...
Yes, this is
go on
all
record.
brand new infrastructure. It's beautiful. If you haven't been there, it's gorgeous.
This is for my information, and probably more than anybody else's, that you already attested to the fact it's in good shape and ready to go. And Squire Whitman was asking about trees, et cetera. To me, there's a road and there's landscaping, and it doesn't make any difference unless you've got planting a tree in the middle of the road or blocking the view at the intersection. So are they together? Landscaping in the road has to be appropriate for it to go into the road system?
Correct.
So you gotta have landscaping on the road or it don't go into the road section? The county
Correct.
road system?
Yes,
For a new subdivision.
the subdivision regulations require...
That's a subdivision regulation. Is that a road regulation?
It's part of the road construction standard, yes, for a public
If not,
street.
we wouldn't be able to get people to plant trees.
Well, don't look to me like it would affect the ability of a road to transport a car.
Squire Tracy.
But it's an improvement in the right of way that the prior court in '06 had adopted.
Okay.
It's a joint city-county
to me. Seemed to me like if a car can drive on it and it's in good shape, the road's in good shape, has nothing to do where the shrubs are planted.
Well, it's more of accepting the right-of-way, all of the public infrastructure into the county system.
Now, I can
rather than-
understand the intersection part where you can't see, you know.
As well as, the subsurface and surface stormwater collection system. Okay, those are part of the county system since we're an MS4 or stormwater, municipal separate stormwater committee. That's part of our infrastructure now.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. Robert, just to circle back, I know this has been on the agenda in the past, but, so just to make sure that I'm clear, the developer has met all requirements of your office?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alrighty. What's the next one, Robert?
All right, the next one is the acceptance of Nicholas Drive and Woods Way into the county road system. These roads are in the condos at Duckers subdivision off of Duckers Road. You have a revised resolution before you because I did not spell Jack Nicholas's name correctly, so I went back and pulled the plat, and so you have a corrected resolution in front of you.
It wasn't misspelled, it was just different.
It's not the way Jack spells it, so I had to correct it.
Squire Blackburn, this is in your district.
This is in my district, and glad to see that we're making sure everybody's under the road system so we can make sure the streets are clean.
Yep.
These roads were just, final coat of asphalt was applied this summer. Road superintendent and I did go out and inspect it. We're working directly with the president of the homeowners association. We did ask them to repair one head wall. They agreed to do so. They had a contractor out this week. And so, this has been a long time coming as well. It sat vacant for many, many years, and then all of a sudden it took off. And so now this is a great time to bring it in. It's all brand new. All the repairs have been done, except as noted. They did that on their own without even requesting an inspection from my office. So road superintendent and I recommend that these roads also be accepted into the system for maintenance.
Thank you. Squire Whitman.
Same question, Robert.
Yes.
Because this map, I don't see any trees, and I bring that up, and I know it's a bit redundant because it has been an issue in this community past multiple times where roads were built and public infrastructure such as sidewalks and landscaping were not met or kind of bit us in the back end. So I'm asking, and I will probably ask every one of these we ever have in the future.
Sure.
This is one of the last ones we had in my district was a big issue about that, and it was delayed for a long time, specifically because of some of that. So could you speak to that on this one as well?
Sure. So this is unique in that all property within the Duckers development is zoned to planned residential. Okay? A planned residential development requires the review and submittal and final approval of a development plan by the Planning Commission. There are no specific standards for density, lot size, or anything else in a planned district. It is the opportunity for a developer to present their concept, their idea, and for the planning commission to either accept it or reject it. So this was done many, many years ago, back when Bill Pulliam was the developer on this. And so this was approved without the requirement for street trees. And also, it was approved for condos, which is required for a mix of housing type for all of the Duckers proper. So this is the single-family attached versus, the single-family detached, and then townhomes that you see in other sections of Duckers. So this was approved as it was developed by the planning commission.
Thank you, and I just want to perhaps express an opinion related to this, that in future, I hope our planning commission will be very critical of any projects that come that don't have some of that landscaping requirement, permeable pavers, other things to help us mitigate the amount of runoff we have in this community. We're continuously talking about that, and I know this was an old project that did not have that requirement, and unfortunately, perhaps we'll see them voluntarily add some green amenities, right?
Yes, and so everything outside of the building is owned by the association. So they have the authority to make improvements, without having to come to the court, and the court would not have to maintain any of those improvements. So they can, once their hurdle is get these roads into the system. And so this is excellent timing for that.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you all very much.
Next, I believe Tammy is up. How's Tammy doing today?
Doing well, thank you. This is an authorization to apply for the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation Grant for the funding of 3 Scott Rapid Intervention Packs and self-contained breathing apparatus cylinders. This necessary life-saving equipment is used in the event a firefighter is trapped or needs rescue during a fire. If awarded, the equipment will either be purchased by the court once the funds are received, or the foundation will purchase the equipment for the fire department. The foundation determines which method that they'll use.
Questions for Tammy on this item? All righty, thank you, Tammy. I believe next one, the chief is here with us. Good afternoon, chief.
Good afternoon, Court. So this item is tied to a grant the fire department was awarded earlier this year to replace our MDTs. The grant should cover the cost of the entire purchase. These items are available on the state master agreement. So I believe the quote was attached and is in your packet. And I think we just received the finalized contract this week. So with approval, we'll be able to go ahead and get that ball rolling and get these implemented as quickly as possible.
Questions for Chief on this item? Squire Whisker.
Just, Chief, there's a tiny bit more grant fund than what the costs are going to be, $456 or something. Is there a way to expend those as well? Do you have a plan to?
There is, if you look at the quote, it says that freight is not included.
Okay.
I'm assuming there may be some cost associated with that. So that'll probably eat some of that funding up.
Okay. Just like using every dollar we possibly can when it's free, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Chief? Seeing none, Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next agenda item, Amy. This is an exciting one. How you doing this afternoon?
Good. So what we're presenting for you to consider is a professional service agreement with Cash Vest by 3-in-1. This was presented at the CAECO conference, and I know that our finance committee, Judge and I, sat through it. I hope that some of you all did as well. It's been endorsed by CAECO and NACO. I've presented it to the finance committee with both magistrates and the judge with recommendations to bring it before you. Basically, it's a program, a tool for us to determine what our liquidity is so that we know how much we can invest and for how long.
Okay. Questions for Amy on this agenda item?
I have maybe a couple of questions if I can get them organized in my brain right. These are recommendations. They come back and suggest or recommend and but the final decision on where that money is invested would be the court, is that correct?
That's correct.
Or yours, or however it's set up?
That's
at that
correct.
time? But it wouldn't be their decision?
No, it's
Just their recommendation?
just their recommendation.
And I do have one more question about the document that we might approve, and that's on number 4. The severability clause says with reasonable cause, and it doesn't say who's going to decide who reasonable is. And if we wanted out of that, I don't think that might wind up in court, because somebody got to decide what reasonable cause is.
I'm gonna lean to our county attorney on that one.
With any document, if we're trying to get out and they don't believe we're getting out in good faith, I mean, that would always be determined by a court. So it's not for any reason, but with reasonable cause. So it's facts surrounding that situation that are known, which would then cause the agreement, I guess, for both parties to separate ways.
So who's going to decide what's reasonable facts?
Well, ultimately, it would be a court of law on whether that belief was reasonable or not.
So I would just like to say, I mean, I think this is a great company. I mean, we spoke to them at the conference and on thing. I also reached out to Judge Moore, who uses them highly up in Boone County, and I think he even told us during that presentation how much money they're making off of this. You know, I think we reached out to them. I think the price is very fair. You know, I think what they said their next steps would be they'll get on it right away. They need access to our accounts, bank accounts, read only. And they get in there, look at everything. They get with Amy, they look at where our money's spent throughout the year and what we have to hold and not hold. And so, I mean, basically, they're just a data company, I think, that really just kind of looks at, we're sitting on a bunch of money and where could it be invested? But then it'll be up to us, to your point, Squire Tanner, what to do with it. I mean, they tell us what to do with it, but it's our ultimate decision. But, I mean, they've pretty much guaranteed, I mean, almost doubling what we're doing now, or we get our money back. Squire Whisper.
Few questions. Are they, it says 12 to 24 months of bank statements. They're only going to go back 2 years initially to look at our trends over time?
Yes.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to take it a little further than that, because I know you have access digitally to a lot of those, or is that their average for further review?
I'm just going by what they provided for us, and I'm assuming that that's just what they generally use to get that trend.
Okay. There's a lot of benefit. I was talking to them at the conference about how communities can leverage their funds that they hold without expending them to underwrite community projects. And they got excited that I was one of the only that brought that up, but particularly in Main Street situations, small business incubators, things like that in communities, there's ability to make our money go further without actually spending it. So I think this is going to open up some avenues for us and some doors. I do wish I had known that they were going to be here presenting. I would have liked to have sat through that finance meeting, but that's another issue. Relating to Squire Tanner's concern, I mean, we have the ability to manipulate this contract, and I think he brings up a reasonable point that we should remove that with reasonable cause. It may turn out that we just don't see the value in this after 6 months, and we decide to leave, and I think we should have that right without having to have any blowback or repercussions. So I'll move to remove those 3 words from the severability clause then.
Let me just point out that if you remove those 3 words, you're still not, this says you can't terminate it until after the first full year of service. You need to read the whole thing. So that's the reasonable cause doesn't.
We're signing on for
affect that.
1 year initially, and then we can review effectively any time. I would think it would take 1 full year to get through our trends anyway, to be able to have a full picture of what the service can provide us. So.
I would say that if you read that paragraph, it could be read that you have to be in for 13 months.
Well, you got to give 30-day notice.
After the first year.
So that would be 13 months. That would be
So
correct.
I just want, so when you read that paragraph, it's not just a year, it's 30 days notice after the first year. So that would then be 13 months.
Amy, refresh my memory, do they bill us quarterly or?
It is quarterly.
Okay.
So the rate
That's what I was
is
gonna ask.
$12,750 per year. They bill in equal quarterly installments of $3,187. So we're looking at 2 of those hitting this current budget in the professional services, the remaining 2 in next year's new budget.
Yeah, and it says that in item 5. It specifically lays that out in item 5 of the agreement.
And again, it's 100% guaranteed. If they don't make us money and they don't direct us in the
It
right
is.
way, then we get our money back, basically.
Judge, that makes me think of a question I had. This is based on our current holdings of $51 million. Is that an annual review if we spend out all of that ARPA funds that we have and the opioid money? Do they have
So much about it.
reevaluate, or that's set
it
for
is-
24 to 26 only?
It's not. Again, if you look in section 5, they did the initial fee based on our current budget, and the original contract that you had in your packet said that it would increase by a possible cost of living adjustment based on the fee this year. When I went back and talked to them, they said, would it be better to maybe lock this rate in for 3 years? Which I think it would be beneficial, because they are not going to come back next year and say, what's your budget? We'll give you a new rate for that. It's starting at $12,750 with a possible increase each year based on a cost of living adjustment.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right. Amy, thank you. Alrighty, next one, very exciting. It's our park project we've been working on all year plus some. So what, I guess, park committee, and I know we had this in a committee meeting, we talked about as far as breaking the project down a little bit more into what we can afford right now, which would be the softball complex. And so what we have in front of us is a design contract that will get us through the design process, all construction documents. I believe they said 3 to 4 months, and that's engineering the lights, scoreboards, bathrooms, everything that has to go with this part of the project. And what else am I missing? Does anybody from the park committee want to say anything? Either Squire Tracy or Squire Blackburn? Microphone, please.
This contract is for basically totally revamp the current 4 fields, and that's with an addition of 3 fields.
Correct.
Plus batting cages, lights all 7 fields, shelter,
Shade structures.
fences,
Turf on the infields.
Yes, turf on the-
Irrigation on the fields.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Squire Tanner.
Does this eliminate the soccer fields?
The bottom ones in that back there, it would, yes.
There won't be any more soccer fields at Lakeview
There's
Park.
still some area for a couple, but for right now, there is none.
This would eliminate any soccer games, basically, there. Or what do you call them, meets or something, which I'm not very familiar with. I just know that it seems to me like the community, I know y'all put a lot of time thinking about this is what you want to do, but you're eliminating some recreation that's used quite a bit in this community, and you think that's wise to eliminate that? I guess that's a question for the committee.
Well, I know I've talked personally to the Y and the ones that were using it, and we're helping them find other fields right now. I mean, they're not as active as they used to be. So what the professionals have said, and I guess what, we've learned through what the public has said, is that, if we could have a bigger presence on certain sports, then it's going to be better to attract people. So that's kind of where we are right now. Squire Tracy?
I know I spoke to Penny, and she's also had conversations with the Y in regards to securing fields for the YMCA leagues. So those conversations are taking place.
Yep. Squire Wisman?
A lot of questions, Judge. I just want to kind of recap and ask for some clarifications. We've got a little bit of a moving target, at least from my understanding of this project. 3.5 weeks ago, three of us were on a meeting, a digital meeting with Hitchcock Group to sort of see a plan. And at that point in time, they told us, the additional 4 fields were just sort of up in the air and that had not been decided yet. And then we came to a meeting last week and that was the preference. And then in this document, I see some additions that I hadn't seen even yet. I'm wondering if you all can explain or talk to the committee members a little bit about that. I had never seen the batting cages, and I understood that we were not, from our last meeting, there was discussion about not making parking improvements or restroom facilities, but that does seem to be part of the scope of this. So I'm wondering if you can just kind of, and there's a little bit of, I'm concerned, a little bit of vagueness or conflict between some of the project understanding and scope of service and then some of the related. So I'm wondering, for my own edification and the public, if the park committee or some representative can kind of walk us through what the full scope of this is and what is included or isn't included. I had questions about how is this going to impact the parking improvement potential for that, since there's going to be increased need. Are we adding bleachers and spectator areas? I didn't see that specified. And there was some discussion of prefab buildings, a preference for that versus maybe on-site bid building. And then specifically, I'm wondering, we don't have any discussion here. I realize this is for design, but if we can talk a little bit about, staffing costs and how we're going to functionally run something like this, if this is the direction we're going. And I know that's a lot, but I think all pertinent. I know the public has questions, and so do I. So.
Well, I'll start off, and I don't know if I can keep up with all those questions, but I will say the master plan has been on the website since, I think, January, February. It's 258 pages, where Pros Consulting basically talks about what the best use of parks is. And when we had our public survey, I think almost 2,000 people came out and met with that. There is parking on this part of the plan as far as making that first lot there on the right bigger. We've talked to the school system about extending the lot on the bottom side, but that's a school property there. We have a lease right now, but we're looking to...
Which parking specifically? When we had the meeting a few weeks ago, they were talking about that lot down by the current area that was being looked at, but it doesn't specify where.
Yeah, that has been an area, and actually that should have been addressed years ago. That came in front of the court. But unfortunately, our county attorney didn't follow through with that. But basically, having conversations with the school system, buildings and things like that, we are looking at prefab type material buildings, just because things could be done a whole lot more efficient, cost efficient, effective. So we're looking at using those. Part of this contract is to have an architecture firm involved to make sure that we come up with a theme for the whole park, since this is just phase 1. Phase 2, 3, 4, we want it to all match and not be hodgepodge. So there is architect in this, I think it even says Williams Architect up there on the top of this design team. So this is basically the whole shoot and match as far as everything needed for a softball complex. Let it be where the umpires change, bathrooms, batting cages, new shade structures. I think we had talked about just turf in the infields. Originally, when we got the budget items, it was turf in outfields and infields, and that was just way over the budget. So after talking to a lot of people that play sports for a living, they said all you need is the infields turfed. Both will have to be irrigated, which is new to me. I didn't realize you had to irrigate a turf because it gets so hot, I guess. So I learned something new on that one. So basically, that's that whole thing. Another part, not in this though, and I won't let everybody know, is that I had a good meeting with someone who owns a business here in Franklin County about the accessible playground. It's another separate thing. He called me a day or two later, and I believe his company wants to sponsor that, which would be incredible, because I think it's our intention to build one of the biggest accessible playgrounds in the state. I think we should all be proud of that.
But none of that design is part of the scope of this?
That would be additional. And then the other thing, and Jack's meeting with Louisville Slugger, I think on the 12th, about a miracle field. So we're hoping we can secure that also. So it's all kind of part of the overall plan that we've been working on. But if I missed something, or Squire Tracy, Squire Blackburn wants to jump in, I don't know if I got all your questions or not.
Well, just one specifically about, I didn't see any, I mean, effectively, we're looking, or the majority here is looking to build out a tournament facility that would be regional. Is there, part of this phase, is the scope to include spectator areas? I didn't see mention of bleachers or grandstands or public areas around.
It is, and if I need them to define that more, we can, but they're looking at it from the whole start to finish of what the complex should have, so yes.
And those, the batting cages and landscape improvements, I'm kind of wondering where and what that scope is, because that's new to this document, I hadn't seen yet.
Okay, I can show you on one of the slides that they have, they should have those structures in place, so I can get that and send that back out to the court, if y'all would like that.
The only other thing, the document specifically says in scope of services, the Lakeview Park Committee. We don't have a Lakeview Park Committee specifically, we have a park committee.
Yeah, that's a typo, I'm sure.
And I suppose the final thing that I have with this contract, it has a design, development, construction documents of $286,750. But then we have a standard hourly rate for reimbursable expenses on the back, and that always seems to come up in this court, that we have a discussion of limiting additional open-ended checks, if you will.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I believe the way the court's set up, though, if anything changes from that bid price, no different than what we're doing with the road department right now, it'd have to come back in front of the court.
That would be a maximum allowable expense would be what we're, the $286,750, and anything additional would have to come, or the expectation, it has to come to this full body to approve.
That's my understanding, absolutely. Any other questions?
Before we vote on this, if you don't mind,
No, you're fine.
the process,
This is gonna go to Hitchcock. They're gonna send back all these recommendations, and then it's gonna be bid from the here.
Absolutely.
They can't bid it, I
No,
understand.
so what happened, this
But
is,
if we look at that plan, and their cost estimates, which should be in here.
yeah, absolutely.
If they're out of control, we can end it right
Yeah,
then.
absolutely.
And that has to be, of course, we're gonna spend $300,000 more
Yep.
to figure out what that is, but in the end, it's a big hill to climb, could be a big hill to
Yep.
climb, well, it is. That park's been it's a gem to this community, and to make it better, I'm not opposed to that. But, what is to make it better? I mean, is it for the community, or is it for the state? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, maybe I'm vague in my statement, but anyway, that runs through my mind. If we're gonna have, classic softball tournaments that are out there, so then when they're going on, local people are not gonna be able to use that at all. And that's probably, most of those are gonna happen on the weekend, probably. So then the local players are gonna be confined to play 5 days a week or 4.
And we've talked to most of the schools, because we've talked to KSU about letting them use one of the fields as their home fields. We've talked to Frankfurt Independent about the same, and they all agree that, I mean, they would be basically during the week. I mean, they don't typically play a lot on the weekends anyways, most of the school activities are during the week. So I think it's gonna personally work well for everybody, for locals and for regionalization.
This is just some of the things that's gonna come up
Yeah,
down the road. I mean,
absolutely.
somebody's gonna be in charge of scheduling all that,
Yep.
and you can't schedule 2 games on the same court at the same time.
No.
So is that gonna fall under Mr. Lewis?
Well, I think the bigger thing is what we're looking at here, and we have talked to the city some, as far as if we are gonna truly start attracting, people from out of state, we'll ultimately have to hire somebody to probably run that, and
Could you
indoor
speak to
facility.
that? Elaborate on that a little bit. That was one of my questions too. Sort of, have we estimated, or will they give us some recommendations about how we're staffing?
They work with companies right now, so I mean, we could go from a single person to a company, ultimately, and luckily, we met with the governor, a couple weeks ago, the lobbyist and I, and on his budget, he has $10 million earmarked for our indoor facility. So it's up to us to hopefully keep that money in there. So the plan is, at least my thought, I guess it's not really a plan, would be if we could pull that off with the senior center, with the satellite library with the library, sheriff's department. We actually build a community indoor facility to help the kids in our community that they could use it every day, and our seniors. And ultimately, at that point, we have somebody running it all, somebody who specializes in that.
But we're biting off this small portion at first, and I'm expecting we're either gonna have to contract out for the management and maintenance of that facility. I don't see how our current staffing is gonna be able to handle that additional load.
Can I jump in here for just a second? So I have had many conversations about this, as you know. And I feel I have told people that I will tell you guys what they have said to me. So I'm going to do that because that is my job here. We have already spent $600,000 on this, and we are going to spend another $300,000, and we have not put a shovel in the ground. That's a lot of money. I think that people are very concerned that we are not going to make this money back. They're very concerned. I have heard we would like to keep our community park. We don't want this to be a regional park. This is our park. I have heard that people are going to be parking in our neighborhoods. That's what they think, Judge. I'm telling you what they're telling me, and they deserve to be heard. I've heard it's not going to pay for itself. This is a ridiculous amount of money. Where is soccer going to be played? I mean, I hear this consistently. People are worried about this. I just need you all to understand that. I know that you all have worked on this really hard, and there are things that I think we need to do with this park, but I really want this park committee to think about the people that utilize this park and live around this park, and that it is their park. This is not our park. Thank you.
Oh, and I appreciate that. I mean, and Squire Wisman brought up last time, as far as safe ways to school and things like that. So Tammy's been working on, how do we get sidewalks up and down Georgetown Road? How do we bring kids in off of, through Indian Hills to get to the park more? There's still plenty of space. If we want to add some multi-use fields, I mean, there's still plenty of space in that park there. We could do it, but I mean, I think ultimately to get our best bang for the buck, and yes, Kelly, it's a lot of money. This whole design thing, I mean, it's a lot, but ultimately, what are we going to do? Not build it? You know what I mean? We don't want another plan on the shelf and nothing happen. I mean, I truly think because we hired the professionals, the Hitchcock, the pros, the people like that do this for a living, I'm kind of following the roadmap here.
Well, Judge, to be fair, my takeaway from the presentation from Hitchcock Group a few weeks ago was we had some options here, and this option to build out a 7-plex of baseball fields was our park committee's preference, not their recommendation. It was one of many recommendations of avenues we could go, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly and Richard were on that meeting. They presented that hadn't been decided yet 3 or 4 weeks ago, that was one of multiple avenues we were looking at. They didn't say anything about that was the highest and best recommendation. And I understand the reasoning, and I remember the city's park plan talking a lot about the decline of baseball and softball, but I understand that regionally there's not a lot of facilities, and at the same time, I always thought that it was cumbersome and problematic that I use this example quite often, that if you have a child in elementary, middle, and high school here in this city or this county, you have to go to 3 different parks to watch all their T-ball games. And you can't do that, obviously, simultaneously. So I'm supportive of the idea of consolidating some of those kinds of things to a park where we have space for it, which is Lakeview. But, as I said in our last meeting, one of my biggest priorities has to be, and I wish I'd seen more of that in the scope of this, is designing some access to that park. Right now, I want to spend some money on doing that tomorrow, not waiting on if we get a grant fund. I want to make sure that neighborhood can finally walk into the park without having to hop a fence, and that you don't have to drive to it.
Because their property comes a good ways in the back there, most of that there, and they're getting ready to build a new track there, so I'm in conversations with them as far as at least getting a sidewalk to the edge of their property, and then ultimately, I mean, we could connect the two. So I'm right there with you. Squire Tracy.
I think the county attorney can agree to this.
He usually runs it. I walk it daily, but there are a number of areas that you can walk right into the park off the roadway.
In my legal opinion, yes. Because I was there just last weekend running.
Thank you. I'd also like to say, and the park director's here, Charlie, the people I talk to from the city are excited. They're struggling to find practice times, fields for practice. They're practicing on Saturdays and Sundays and would rather not do that. Charlie, you can chime in if you'd like. But they're excited about the fact that this is the direction, hopefully, that the court goes, because it's going to help the city leagues out as well.
Well, Eric and Squire Whistling, I'm sorry. And the one thing, though, where Hitchcock and them have not been probably involved in the last 6 months with this is the massive facilities that have built right around us. You know what I mean? Athens, Boonesboro, Richmond.
Right. Things have changed a lot since the plan was done.
Georgetown, you know, but they all went for soccer, you know, every one of them, you know. So the park committee felt like this was the niche that could probably pay off most for Franklin County and Frankfort too.
Well, and I'll give you that comprehensively looking at our entire community. The city has a lot of soccer fields. We have almost an entire soccer complex down at Capitol View.
And honestly, I mean, it might even be better for them to take those two fields out and keep with soccer across there.
That's always been my preference to see.
And we've had some talks about that. So, I mean, we are trying to work together with them to make sure everybody's taken care of in this community. Go ahead, Squire.
There has to be a starting point, and I'm gonna vote for this today. I'm sure you am. But there's two things that's left out that's probably very important to the people, a lot of people. One of them is the playground you've talked about being one, but it's not even considered in here, and the Miracle Field, which is very important to a lot of people. There's not many of them exist, and this could be a premier thing here if you do that. So, and I know you can't just add things and add things and add things, but, you know, it's got to be a priority to put those in. Maybe there is some grants. Maybe we're eligible for some Department of Interior grants. I don't know. It might be, because it's a park.
Like I said, I have been working very hard on those two things you just said right there. Honestly, that would be my first choice to go in first. And I am confident, and I'm meeting next week with a couple gentlemen that want to be sponsored. So I can't guarantee it, but I feel like the playground is getting ready to move just as fast as this. And then the Miracle Field, I mean, I haven't begun. Our goal, hopefully, is to go after private funds for this park. I don't think there's any reason we can't find people that have been very successful in here, especially here in Franklin County, that if we just ask, you know, we're going for donors.
We need the Buffalo Trace Playground.
Yep. You're exactly right.
I mean, that's why we did something.
Yes.
Slugger or Miracle Field, but you know, they're in Louisville, but they could trickle down here, maybe. But anyway, it's very important, and I'm sure you'll talk about it. So I'm stopping right there.
And Kelly, I don't want to disregard everything you said. I mean, and we're an open book. I mean, this has been a long process going on. So, you know, it's, we're just trying to make things better.
I will tell you this, the public does not think that we're an open book. They do not. They feel like they don't know what's going on. That's what I keep hearing. So we need to do better.
I don't know.
We need to do better than this. We just do.
Contact me. I'd love to talk to them. I mean, like I said, I don't know what else to do. The plan's on our website. I mean, we try to talk about this as much as we can.
As I've said before, I think that we can make sure that the public sees our meetings, our committee meetings. I think it's important. I really do.
I agree. Judge, you know, I will say, you all know I've had frustrations getting to the point to be fully informed on this plan and what was developing and the minutia of what's been happening for the most of this year, and I didn't feel like I had most of that information until a couple weeks ago. So I'm sure the public is feeling the same. If this goes through, as I suspect it will, maybe it would be nice to have Hitchcock Design Group do a little bit of a public PSA about what the scope of this is and what are the moving parts of it. Let's be proactive in putting information out to the public about what we're trying, what's the reasoning behind this, why we're going this direction, what is the estimated cost. You know, there was some talk about how much this plan might take to actually fulfill of $5 or $6 million, and that's a big ask right now when we've got a deficit of 3 in our working budget almost.
I want to put some of that out, some of that reasoning, and for all of our benefit. The only other thing I wanted to ask, there's been this long languishing rumor around this community that I keep hearing about the legality of that park, what funds were used to buy Lakeview initially, and I don't believe there were anything, I've looked at the deed before, and I didn't see any restrictions, but I haven't heard this body, maybe it was reviewed before, but I was going to ask our county attorney if they could look at any, make sure we don't have any preclusions with funds this park was bought for, or anything about a revenue generating stream or a conference center or anything else that I'd like for my own benefit as a.
I've never heard that. But
I would just like it to be reviewed because I believe
Yeah.
part of it was bought with land, air, water conservation
It
funds
was,
initially, which
and that's my
restricts some
understanding as
things.
well. Yeah.
So I'd like to ask that to be reviewed.
The only
and
thing
brought
when
back
we
to
did
us.
about a year ago, when Hitchcock dug in and really did anything, the only thing they found was, I think, to Squire Tanner's point, I think the skate park was done with federal funds, some of the walking path, and part of the splash pad, thank you. So it was like
Talking about-
$100,000 worth of federal funds that were used, but as far as, are you talking about?
No, when it was originally
Oh, that's what- yeah.
built.
When the land was
When it was,
They never
when the
found
land
anything
was
when they did
first
all
bought.
the deed work and everything. At least they didn't, I mean,
I
on
would
their
think it
end.
would be something with the Department of Local Government. I'm positive there was land, air, water conservation funds used initially in the purchase of it because it was sort of new at the time. I just would like that to be
Yeah.
reviewed. Any action that we take, obviously, that would impact something that federal funds have
Oh,
paid
yeah.
for, we have to get pre-permission to
Yep.
alter it in any way. I just want to make sure we do our due diligence
No,
and not have
absolutely.
something come up in the background.
Absolutely, yeah, and I've never heard that, but we'll definitely look into that.
Judge, I'll look through my documents as well. I have a copy of the deed at the park.
Okay.
Some old documentation from way back in '91 when they bought it.
Okay,
I'll do
There you
some
go.
research there as well.
all right, thank you, Charlie. You're kind of hiding over there, I kind of forgot you were there. Kind of dipped down on me, yeah,
That's on purpose.
yeah. All righty, Amy, I believe you're back up.
Judge, could we go back to that, just to talk about
Yeah.
where the court, if you choose to vote this through, where the money's, where we would like to use, where it's going to come from, how we're going to pay for it. I mean, I would recommend at this point that it would just be general funds, which was not budgeted for, which would come out of the reserves.
Go ahead, Squire.
Have you been part of the discussion and reviewed where this money would be coming from? General fund, or that's the only fund available, isn't it? General fund money.
Right.
You
When
can
we've
transfer
talked,
it around, but still be in the general.
when we've talked about the park project, we've talked about ARPA funds. We've also talked about the bond, the additional money. But since this is still in the planning, I wouldn't say that ARPA funds should be utilized for that. And, I'm not real sure about, it's up to you all. If you want to use the bond funds for that, then we certainly could. But I just would like some direction as to what your all's thoughts are.
I personally think it should just come out of general fund, keep it clean, because it is still designed for it.
I would request that Amy give us a better perspective of where that money should come from at our next meeting, even if we approve it. We don't have to have the money for a couple of weeks anyway, or months, or whatever. We can more realistically decide if we want to take it out of bond money, which is technically general fund anyway, I guess.
Amy, we have a finance meeting the first week in January, so we can put that on an agenda item to talk about as a group, if that's okay. If that's okay at the court.
And if you can give us, Amy, while we have you too, a full analysis of everything we've spent to date or earmarked in any way for the park, even if it's some other improvements or.
Certainly.
Improvements at the park, nothing.
Yeah.
And just to remind the court, if anybody wants to come to committee meetings, they're open. We have people from the public come and sit in on those, so they publish them. So if anybody, as long as they don't speak, right, Max? I'm just making sure I'm
Yeah,
correct.
they can come and get information like anybody else.
Yep, okay. Okay, Amy, go ahead.
Okay. So this next agenda item is our second reading and approval of amendment number 2. The first reading took place November 21st. It was approved by the Department of Local Government on November 29th. It's been advertised, and so I'm bringing it before you for the second reading. Towards the bottom, the financial impact, just to remind you, this second budget amendment will increase the budget by $216,708, which will make our budget total $52,379,979. The next line goes over, if you exclude the capital expenses and the federal projects, it'll increase our budget by the same amount, $216,708, but it brings that budget to $32,367,605. And in your abstract, I have, again, what this budget amendment is for.
And so for clarity, that 32 million really is kind of our living budget.
Yes.
Just covering that ground again for everybody. Thank you.
Any questions for Amy Squarwis? Sorry, Square.
Richard, did you have anything? No, I have no. I thought you did.
Our next item is a budget transfer, and it stems, if you approve the second reading of the second amendment, I will need to make some budget transfers to get that money from the general fund to the jail as they've requested. So that is what this budget transfer is. Budget transfers do not increase or decrease the overall budget.
Questions for Amy on that one? You're on a roll.
Okay. The next one are cash transfers. I usually do these on a quarterly basis. And we have several funds, the jail, fire, and capital improvements that need a cash transfer from the general fund. So these items have been budgeted for. And our next item is the treasurer's report. You have your revenues and expenses as of December 15th. Also, you have, this is the long sheet, and this is the monthly summary that I give you. That's as of November 30th. So just to go over some numbers, if you look to the far right, for your 2024 receipts are $20,628,678. Expenditures, $14,328,956. If you add the fund balance, that brings us to a fund balance from June 30th. That gives us a total fund balance of $27,535,168 as compared to $16 million from last year. But as a reminder, that includes our bond. So Judge had asked me just to sort of see where we're going to end up as of December 31st. So I just have some, as I went through this, just some things that I want to share with you. I did some estimates. For the end of December, I feel like we're probably going to have spent about 36.26% of our budget in expenses. And some line items that I just would like to bring your attention to. In planning and zoning, the engineering services, they're over budget by $3,600, mainly due to the Ducker survey, Lions Way improvement, and Duncan Road. General liability insurance is over budget by about $10,000, mainly due to the additional coverage that we needed for the road facility. A reminder that $108,000 has been moved from reserves to cover the necessary jail expenses. We will probably have another amendment coming soon for $23,000 needed for locks at the jail. So keep that in mind. The fire fund will potentially need a budget amendment from reserves to cover unanticipated retirement contributions for a military retiree. That's approximately $300,000. We spent an additional $9,000 for vehicle for the sheriff, but that was a bit of a trade because the sheriff did offer us a vehicle for our code enforcement officer. Also, we need to watch the professional services. That line item, since we did okay a lobbyist, that was an unbudgeted expense, so we'll have to watch that line. Going up to our revenue, we've collected, not taking into effect the bond, about 32.24% of our revenues. We did get the sheriff's revenue today, so that's going to bump that up.
She's a little happy. Can you tell?
But
Sherry, I got
here's some good things that I'm seeing in our revenues. And these numbers, when I give you the percentages, I'm looking at actuals this year compared to actuals last year. This is not looking at budget.
This is where it gets good, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Property tax receipts are up 7% over last year. Delinquent property taxes up $49,000 over last year. Occupational tax receipts are up 6% over last year. Net profit license receipts increased by 10%. And this is one that has fallen, but our county clerk sort of told us about this, that deed transfer tax receipts have fallen by 18%. Planning and zoning fees have increased 151%. Lakeview revenues for the past 5 months have increased 32%. Our interest for the first 5 months of our budget year is $409,000 as compared to $98,000 from last year. Some of that's due to moving money from banks at lower interest rates to those that are earning more. Some of it's the interest rates are a whole lot better than they were last year. Insurance premium tax receipts have increased by 9%. Transient room increased by 17%. Of course, that's a pass-through, but that is good for the community. Another thing that I want to share, July 1, a judge put into effect the vehicles, where we were not going to take those home anymore. And we have saved about $13,000 for the first 5 months. So, that's a considerable savings with that one small move.
Amy, I just want to say thank you. I give you a lot of credit for moving the money around and looking for better rates. And I mean, just that one fact you said right there, from last year our interest was $98,000 and this year it's over $400,000. That's phenomenal. And so we appreciate you. Squire Sebastian had her hand up.
Very much for your report. Just have a quick question in regard to our expenses. On page...
Mike.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
I thought I did. I apologize.
No, you're good.
On page 4 of the expenses, items 01-5140-303 and 01-5145-322, both are over 70% expended for the current fiscal year, which is kind of nearing its halfway point. Can you advise, I guess, the court regarding the ambulance service and the E911 expenses? Perhaps they have billed in advance or...
No, they're over. And that's for 2 quarters for both of those. I'll have to double check. That I may not be right about the 2 quarters. That might just be 1 quarter. We do have a bill that is in question that we're working with the city still on that. Is that correct? So I'll have to probably give you a better update on that the next time we're together.
Thank you. And I will also echo what the judge said. Thank you very much for your diligence in this. I think there's some members of the court that have spoken out in the past in regard to being able to be more liquid and move our money where we get better return, and you have just been masterful in that. And so all that lays at your feet for doing that and doing that work for everybody in Franklin County. So thank you for doing that.
Squire Tanner.
Why do we need cash vest?
Because I think we can do better.
We have talked about that.
answer.
She keeps telling me, she's like, I'm not a financial advisor.
Good answer.
So, yeah, that was a good answer.
So we're looking for 800,000 next year. No comment.
She's telling you not to push it. I know women call it language.
I think anybody know that body language.
You better know about that.
All righty, we good? Amy, thank you. All righty, last agenda item, payment of claims for Kim here. Does anybody have any questions on this payment of claims?
Yeah, they're not my stuff,
Oh, I'm sorry, Squire Sebastian was zoning out myself.
Okay, that's good. I have a question on general fund.
At the bottom of page 1 is account 015070309, the comprehensive plan. This is for board member insurance. So, I guess, is this a calendar year insurance payment? Because it looks like it's a calendar year from 24 to 25. And I guess, what happens with the
Fees that Planning Commission assesses fees. So do their fees not cover this, and this is just a portion that the county pays? Or does the county pay half of it automatically just out of our budget? Is this a known expense that we need to cover, or just trying to get it? Because the Planning Commission takes in fees while we are paying for things for the Planning Commission, which is a fee body.
We're working on
You
that.
know, I ask this.
We're working on it.
I ask it all the time, so I just don't want to leave it unasked again today.
We are working on that, Squire, but yeah,
Well,
go ahead, Robert.
I'm
Yeah.
glad somebody is, because for 5 years I asked the same questions.
Yes, this is insurance for the calendar year. The city and county do split this cost 50/50. The planning commission in my tenure in this community has never paid their own insurance. It's always been the local government. It's one of many things that the local government funds on behalf of the planning commission as well as the board of zoning adjustments.
And you said in your tenure, so is there a rationale? Because I think I've asked for that too, and I still don't understand what the rationale is, so I'm just going to ask again, just to be consistent in the questions I ask.
The simple rationale is that based on their fees, they don't generate enough to cover their own bills.
And so, again, this is another question.
Keep going, you're on the roll.
Yeah, I am.
I'm just sitting back.
Same one. So have those been reviewed, or what is the Planning Commission itself doing actively to take control of, its expenses as well as its revenues? I mean, I'm sure they're looking at that as a body, just like we're talking about looking at it for the county, just in like fashion.
The commission has not directed staff to do anything related to increased revenues associated with fees or the like. So there's no discussion of raising fees. The last discussion relating to anything associated with their budget specifically was when they increased the membership participation rate per meeting.
Okay, so what you're saying by that is the members who come to the meetings are paid more? Is that what you're saying, per meeting?
Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand that.
Yes, and the city and county pay
Yeah.
for that as well.
Squire Tanner.
It's a comment, I guess. Those members are appointed by this body, and so they're working for us. Therefore, they may, we wouldn't want to put them out and not be insured for, I'm sure this is errors of omission.
It's probably
type insurance, is that correct?
And liability.
And liability,
A whole
those
slew of
things.
things, yes.
So if we're going to ask them to serve for little or nothing, then I don't know why we would not want to be able to pay their insurance. Now, I agree with the fees should maybe cover everything else, but at least for the insurance.
The issue is not paying for it.
Yeah.
The issue is not paying it. The issue is there a way that we can work with this body and the city to make them more whole and responsible for the things that they
Well,
utilize?
I don't-
That's it in a nutshell.
You know, in a nutshell, if they can generate enough money to cover all expenses, but the one, if they were to be short one, it should be, we should cover them for any kind of liability that they might have, since they're volunteering their time, basically.
If I may, I have expressed, my opinion on how to deal with this issue over several administrations and look forward to continuing the conversation with this administration.
Squire Westman.
I would, we're at a point that we've just had someone else step down off that board, and we're now more members that are brand new and unseasoned than anything we've had in the past 30 years probably with that body. I think it's apt time for us. I've been talking to Robert about some training opportunities. We need to put some funds aside to provide some really in-depth training immediately, I feel like next month, and I wanted to bring it up under new business, but we don't have that tonight. So maybe it's apt time to look at everything comprehensively about how that board and all of our joint boards are going to operate in the future, where we can make them whole, and really more of their role. They have some ability to assess fines and other things that they don't really, a couple of
they
boards
don't.
do. Yeah, but they don't really do. And I think it's apt time for us to revisit the operations of all the planning commission.
Not all planning commissions across the state function the exact same way.
Right.
There are different ways to form.
Squire Sebastian.
Just to finish the
Yeah.
question, do we know if they bid this insurance out? There may be multiple carriers for this type of, it's probably, I'm assuming D&O, errors and omissions, that kind of thing, standard. Do we know if they bid that out?
So they go through Chenault and Hogue as the broker to find the best rate. Well, actually, this comes from Kentucky League of Cities Insurance is what it is.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was something that they bid out on an annual basis. Everybody's looking for best value.
Right.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah, Chenault and Hogue has been their agent for forever.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our clerk? Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. I just have one more, and it's the standard one about the jail fund, 035101-343, medical expense overage. Do we have any information again about the overage?
No,
Seems like every month
but if you remember, they were supposed to come to our meeting last week, and then because of the bad weather, they couldn't fly in, so I believe they're invited to our next meeting.
Okay.
It's on the 3rd or 4th.
Which
After the new year, that we can get all those answered, so
Look
yes.
forward to
And they were happy to come. Ron said he had them in a week or two before that. He had a great conversation with them, but because that day that it was snowing, they couldn't fly the plane up here, so, yeah. I think there's a meeting on the 4th, Thursday, whatever that date is. Yeah, so
Thank
we'll hopefully get all those answered.
Judge,
Sir.
related to that same line item, I hear you all bring it up fairly often, but there's two expenses for eyeglasses that I keep understanding that are supposed to be paid out of the canteen instead of out of our direct budget, but we keep seeing those. We need to have a comprehensive review of the fee structure, I think, of the jail. Maybe the task force can take that up, or finance, or whoever these things are coming to.
Yep, no, it's a very good call there.
Good thing to do for the new year.
Yep. Good.
That plan's a slush fund.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you, Judge. Are there plans, I know it's been discussed here, I know it's been discussed multiple times, but are there plans for the task force to look into the medical contract at the jail?
We're going to do it with finance committee.
Oh, is it going to be through the, okay.
Well, yeah, trying to look at improvements that are needed and stuff like that.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Any other questions for our clerk? Alrighty, seeing none, this is roll right into a voting session if y'all are good with that. Everybody okay? Yeah, okay. I was good, yeah, I'm fine. Let's take 5 minutes. We'll come back at 5:05. Oh, okay, thank you. Alrighty, welcome. This is our December 21, 2023 voting session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present.
Squire Dykus.
Here.
Squire Tracy. Here. Squire Tanner. Here. Squire Wiseman. Present. Judge Mueller.
Present. Authorization for approval of minutes from regular meeting of December 6, 2023 with the corrections stated earlier.
Judge, question, should we just start approving the amendments as well? Just legal question, I suppose, the amendments to it and then approving as amended, or do we want to?
Which one you talking?
The minutes, because we had some significant
yes,
amendments
yes.
on this one.
I agree. I can make I move that minutes be approved as amended by Squire Whitman, changing that language on whatever the last word was.
I was saying, should we do two steps? Should we approve the amendments first and then approve as amended? Or does it matter as a joint thing? It was brought up a while ago.
She wrote them down.
Because actually it was two different motions and the money's left out.
Well, I mean, I think as far as just approving the minutes as amended with the amendments as previously stated, is that?
That would work for me.
All right,
Instead of, I guess what you were requesting is one, a motion to amend the minutes based upon, and then everybody voting on that one, and then a second motion to approve the minutes based upon.
As
amended.
As amended.
Be more.
I think either one would be acceptable.
You good with this sticking with what?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, so did you get it first?
Me.
Second was?
Second.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive the report of the audit of the Franklin County Sheriff's Office for the year ended December 31, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve the sheriff's participation in state advancement program for calendar year 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve sheriff's lump sum fee officials budget for calendar year 2024.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve sheriff's annual order setting maximum amount for deputies and assistants for calendar year 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that, clerk?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve surplus vehicles for trade-in purposes and/or gov deals auction. Sheriff.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve the agreement with Amtech Life Safety for providing inspections at the Franklin County Regional Jail.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to amend the jail's policy and procedures manual regarding mail and visitation on Chapter 1, page 5 and 12.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Judge, a vote aye, but I would like to revisit that in 6 months because I would like to see us get back to the potential for in-person visitations. And I don't know that I want to exclude that forever.
Okay. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. You good, clerk?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Authorization to approve the First Amendment to Local Development Area Agreement with the Paddocks of Frankfurt Local Development Area.
So moved. But second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion
Present.
passes. I'm sorry?
Present.
Authorization to approve an order authorizing the judge executive to execute an estoppel agreement with a proposed realtor anchor related to the Paddocks of Frankfurt Local Development Area.
So, second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Present.
Clerk, did you get that?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, This is just the first reading of an ordinance of the Franklin County, Kentucky Fiscal Court, the Fiscal Court approving a First Amendment to the Local Development Area Agreement related to local development area created for economic development purposes within the city of Frankfort, Kentucky, known as the Paddocks of Frankfort Local Development Area. The local development area created by the city of Frankfort, the city, by ordinance number 7-2022, the local development area ordinance. Vote will be taken on our next meeting. Next agenda item has been tabled, so we can get some clarification. That will be on our next agenda. Authorization to approve a resolution accepting Whispering Pines Drive and White Pine Court into the county road system.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a resolution accepting Nicholas Drive and Woods Way into the county road system.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application to the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation grant for the Franklin County Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to purchase MDTs for the fire department through Kentucky State Master Agreement.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a professional service agreement with Cash Vest by 3+1.
So moved.
Second.
Is that as amended?
As amended
Okay, as amended.
by deleting those 3 words.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
I'll explain my vote. Amy said it was good, so I'm voting for it.
Okay.
And just for clarification, are you all saying that the contract as it stands, you all are not agreeing to without the removal of those 3 words? So
That would be my intention. If we
And
need
so
to
I
be more
think-
specific in the motion,
I think there will need then to be a discussion with the company to see if they're willing to remove those 3 words from the contract.
Can you read what those 3 words were again, please?
I got to look it up again, but it's with reasonable.
Reasonable cause, and so it's a situation that I'd say that will have to be negotiated by the company. They may not be willing to accept that deletion of those 3 words. So we may need to table that matter to have that negotiation.
I'm personally okay with going with the way it is, because it's just a year contract.
Well, it would pass, even if I vote against it, it'd pass. I'm not really against it, I just seem to like.
I just wanted to get that clarification out there, because like I said, the
It's gonna
company
be
may not be
13
willing to
months
amend their
anyway.
contract.
Yeah. I think Amy really wants to get going.
Otherwise, it could be 3 years, because it'll be in court that long.
Okay, so here's the discussion point as our counselor brings it up. So the motion on the floor is as amended.
We haven't all
So,
voted yet, though, so what do I need to do to?
We can't amend the contract, I agree with the discussion that the attorneys had, obviously.
Who made the motion? Can they rescind the motion?
I'm not saying we need to back up.
We didn't make it. I was asking the question of clarification if that was as amended, because I asked to amend, but we didn't make a final action on that in the work session.
Okay.
So it stands as written, right?
Correct.
I think the initial motion was as written.
Yes,
And
it
then
is.
after that motion was made, I think somebody else then says as amended. So I think the original motion was the contract as it stands. I just wanted to get that clarification because that was thrown in there.
Should we do something different just to make sure that we're all clean on it, or?
I can vote for it, but if there becomes a snag, we may be in court, but it may not ever come up. It may not ever. The only reason.
From procedural standpoint, what am I doing here?
I think the original motion that was on the floor was the contract as written is what is being voted on.
So we just need to vote it up or down, or
And so if
whatever.
somebody
We haven't
wants,
voted yet. Can I read it again?
yes.
Is that okay?
So
We haven't
everybody
voted?
knows what they're voting.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Authorization to approve a professional service agreement with Cash Vest by 3+1.
And so I made the motion, and Squire Tracy seconded the motion as.
Okay, now I'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve an agreement with Hitchcock Design Group for the initial design phase of improvements for Lakeview Park regarding the Lakeview Park Ball Field Complex.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Present.
Clerk, did you get that?
I got Dykus and who else present? Okay.
Second reading and approval of amendment number 2 to ordinance number 7-2023 relating to budget for fiscal year 2023-2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve budget transfers for fiscal year 2023 and 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those disagree, nay. Opposed, thank you. It's been a long day. Yeah. Motion passes. Authorization to approve cash transfers for fiscal year 203-2024.
So
Judge.
moved.
Question there. It's a typo in our
Oh,
agenda.
2023.
It'll be fixed.
Yeah. I'll read it again. Authorization to approve cash transfers for fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny any payment of claims? No motion was made. Let the record reflect claims are to be paid. Before we adjourn, I just want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. I personally want to say thank you to this fiscal court. It's been a long year, but it's been a great year. I think we have a lot of great things going in Franklin County we all should be proud of. With that, Merry Christmas, and we are adjourned.